following program is distributed by the Bears Barroom Radio Network. It's intended for all audiences. Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon and Niel Stopczynski.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aldo Gandia. I play the general manager on this show, Draft on Tap. That's the approach we're taking with the 2020 version. We are scouting players that might fit the Chicago Bears system. The guys that are doing the scouting are above me on the screen. They are Danny Shimon. Hey, Danny, how are you?
How are you?
Good. And Niel Stopczynski. Neil, how are you, brother?
Doing awesome, man. It couldn't be any colder right now. It's great.
It's cold.
It's colder.
Let's get colder, man. Let's go. I'm ready for it.
Well, it's a perfect excuse to stay indoors and watch tape, which I saw, Neil, you posted a picture of you doing just that, watching tape earlier today.
Absolutely. I had on the Florida LSU game from this past weekend, getting another look at Tony and Trask, and was hoping last weekend I could see Pitts again. But did we have any clue why he didn't play?
I don't.
Anybody?
No,
nothing was released. I thought it might have been COVID related, but I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I didn't get a chance to see a whole lot of that game though, so I wanted to see the shoe toss and what happened there and everything else. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. The guys have been pouring through tons of tape, and we are collecting interviews with some of the top draft analysts out there. Last week, or on our last show, we spoke with Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. And today we're very fortunate to have with us from Lindy's Sports Magazine, writer, editor, Matt Lowe. Matt, are you with us?
I am, man, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys again.
I'm telling you, Matt, every time I think this might be your third, maybe even fourth performance with us or appearance with us. And we just love every time that you're on. You bring great knowledge. And by the way, you're a great guy too. I don't know if your kids or your wife have told you that.
Yeah, I try to be, man. I definitely have my flaws, but I try to be. And man, it's always a pleasure being on because I enjoy talking with you guys. You guys know your stuff as well.
Well, and before I turn it over to Danny and Neil, who are going to pepper you with all sorts of football questions, I want to find out from you, how are things over at Lindy's? When can we expect the next issue to prepare us for the NFL draft? And anything else you want to share about what's going on over at Lindy's?
Well, we're actually starting on working on a potential national champion. It's been kind of slow here recently. We usually do NBA book, but since the seasons got staggered, we didn't do one this year. But we just finished up a fantasy baseball preview, and we'll be doing a national champion, and then we'll do Major League Baseball in beginning of January, and we'll do the draft edition. Of course, we'll do a championship edition on whoever wins the Super Bowl. So it starts cranking up for us a little bit more in January and February. But other than that, man, just doing website stuff, and like I said, watching as much football as I can, and just kind of getting ready to see who wins this thing in the NFL and college.
And the website is lindysports.com. That's correct, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Actually, and I'm looking at it right now. Let me share it on the screen with our viewers here because I want them to take a look at the website and the fact that you can back order any of these great publications and start ordering upcoming publications. It's a great layout, and I can tell you, I am a frequent purchaser of these magazines. They're the best in the business. They do outstanding job, not only with the writing, but the graphic layout information. It's just really outstanding stuff. Kudos to you and your team, Matt.
Well, thank you, man. Like I said, we got a small team, but we work really hard. And Norbert Feliciano, he does the layout. He's been with Lindy's for about 20 years. He does a great job of doing that too. So props off to him. He doesn't really get to do many interviews, but he does an outstanding job for us.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the guys and start with Danny. Danny, your thoughts for Matt?
Yeah, man. Let's talk quarterbacks, man, because you may imagine the QB position is a hot topic surrounding the Bears here in these parts right now. So there are a number of guys. Me personally, I think 5 guys are going to potentially go in the first round of this draft. Possibly a 6th could sneak in there, but I think 5 for sure will go. And 2 guys I want to touch base with you on. One guy I absolutely love is Mac Jones from Alabama. And the other guy that I'm not quite sure where I stand with him right now is Kyle Trask of Florida. Give us your rundown of these 2 prospects.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, I think we lost Aldo and
Good
Matt.
for that nowadays. When you look at Trask, he's probably more athletic of the 2, but Mac is a little killer instinct to him, and he's really got a lot of moxie, and I think he's a big time leader on the Alabama team, same as Trask. But Mac's got a great ability to throw the deep ball. His touch on the deep ball is pretty impressive. Kyle can do the same thing too, but I don't think he's as accurate down the field. So that might be a difference between them. And like I said, the athletic ability of Trask. But both guys, I think, their work ethic is top notch, and you're going to get 2 guys and those 2 players that are very coachable. And I think that's very important.
My thing with Trask, Matt, I don't know if you agree or not, but I'm worried about his arm strength. I mean, for me, at best, it's probably average. And bringing him into a team like the Bears, or playing in an environment where the climate could indicate whether it's windy, cold, or snow, so on and so forth. Does he have the arm strength, in your opinion, to be able to drive that ball and make all those NFL type throws?
Yeah, I think he does, and it's not all about how hard you can throw it. It's to me too. It's about where you put it and accuracy. That's a major thing playing quarterback. I mean, Joe Montana didn't have a rocket arm, but he was one of the best quarterbacks ever. So, but his leadership qualities and his ability to, and I mean him under Dan Mullen, getting coached by Dan Mullen, I think that's a plus for him. Because Dan's a great quarterbacks coach, and he's a really good developer of quarterbacks. So I think that's going to be big to him on the next level. And you guys mentioned something about Kyle Pitts not playing last week, which was kind of bizarre. I don't know what the deal was what that was either. It's almost like Florida wasn't even ready to play last week. That was a very surprising loss I think they took there. And I think you'll see in this SEC championship game that Alabama's just they're just clearly a better team, and I think the scoreboard's going to indicate that.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of Kyle Pitts, I thought maybe it was a COVID thing, but nothing was really clarified. Nothing was reported after the game. So I'm not really sure what was going on with Pitts there. One more quarterback from the SEC that for me is kind of an enigma. Well, actually, before I go there, let me ask Neil, do you have something on Kyle Trask or Mac Jones before I move on to Kellen Mond?
Yeah, actually, the interesting thing that you touched on there, Matt, was the whole idea of how Dan Mullen is a really good producer of quarterbacks. And the thing about Kyle Trask that I really like is just he's so mechanically sound. The way that he spins the football is beautiful. He's just mobile enough to me in the pocket to be able to escape pressure. But I think the thing that's really going to hamper him as far as his draft process goes, evaluation process at the next level, is the fact that, he's not a runner, right? What do you see as far as you having your pulse on the league and on the scouting, environment of what they're saying about him as far as his ability to be a dual threat guy and using that to his advantage, or just being a drop back guy as he is right now?
I don't think he's a dual threat, but I mean, he's a big boy. I mean, he's 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds, and they run him a lot down by the goal line. I mean, he's gotten in the end zone quite a few times, and he's tough. I mean, if I wanted to have an NFL comparison to him, it'd probably be Carson Wentz as far as running ability. I mean, but he's not, he's no dual threat by any means. But I mean, you're going to get a guy that's coachable, like I said, and has been coached by a really good quarterbacks coach. And I think he's a guy that can pick up the system quickly, and he's a team player. That's always an important thing. And, because a lot of kids nowadays are all about themselves. And when you get into the NFL, you got to work hard and you got to learn that playbook quickly. And that's a very vital thing to quarterback success and then on the next level.
Right. So the other quarterback, I was kind of starting on this question earlier, but it's Kellen Mond, man. This kid for me has been an enigma. I mean, you look at that, his size, the frame, the athletic ability to go along with that strong arm. He looks like someone NFL teams would drool over, to have as their, signal caller. So for me, his problem, I think, has been consistency. Do you think there's a chance that when he gets into the next level, Mond, that he has a ability to show that he can be a better quarterback than he's shown so far in college?
Well, yeah, you're right about inconsistent with his first couple of years. And the thing to me that I noticed over watching him over 4 years is he always got off to a slow start. And then Texas A&M will get down in a game, and then, Jimbo Fisher will kind of turn him loose, and he would seemingly play better as the game went on, and this year, I think he's become a more complete player. I mean, and Jimbo Fisher's a good quarterbacks coach. He's been doing this for a long time, too. I mean, he's coached some really good QBs over the years. So I think, seeing him progress this year, I mean, he can also hurt you with his feet, too. So that's a very valuable thing. But I think this year he's become a more complete quarterback, and he's also operating behind a really good offensive line. And, of course, Jalen Weidemeyer is a really good tight end he's had to throw the ball to. But I think he could be you get him on the right team and the right system, he could potentially be a starting quarterback. And I wouldn't put him up there in the elite class, but, I mean, you could maybe get him in the middle rounds of the draft and develop him, and see what happens with him. But he's definitely, this is his best year by far. And guys, I think that A&M team is right up there with the best teams in the country. I mean, they're a pretty complete football team.
Hey, Matt, speaking of having your finger on the pulse of the scouting community, and, the guys know that this is something that I have been critical on and I can be critical on, with big-time prospects. I'll name off Sewell and Russo and Tryon, Jamie Newman, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons, guys like that sitting out the year, claiming COVID being the reason. What effect do you think do you see that having on their evaluation process going into the draft?
I think it'll hurt them. I mean, and Jamie Newman, I was really surprised about that move. And look, I don't blame any of these guys for doing that at all. I don't. It was just the timing of it that kind of, I don't know if it necessarily bothered me, but I just think he kind of left his team high and dry. I mean, let's face it, Georgia's been a quarterback away this year from being pretty good, but they're a pretty good team now. But I mean, going back to Mond too, I mean, he's really limited in his mistakes too. This year, he's only thrown 2 interceptions, I think. But Jamie Newman, yeah, I think it's going to hurt. I mean, because like I said, I mean, you get into the NFL, it's your job, and to me, like I said, I think you're basically walking out on your team, and I don't agree with it. And again, I understand why guys did it, but I just thought the timing of it with Newman this year was a little odd. And let's face it, when you go from a Wake Forest roster to a Georgia roster, and you see the kind of the talent difference there, I mean, I don't know how good Jamie Newman would have been in the SEC, but like I said, I think he left his team kind of high and dry. So I do think that'll affect his draft status somewhat.
Yeah, Newman, when he sat out or opted out, I was kind of disappointed because I was really looking forward to seeing how he would do, like you said, Matt, transfer from Wake Forest over to Georgia, seeing how he would do in the SEC. But that was a bit of a disappointment too. So, but moving along to a different position group, another area in which is a major need for the Bears, and that's the offensive line. While there are a number of intriguing offensive linemen that I like, there's one kid that I've been zeroing in on specifically for the Bears, for their scheme and for their fit. Hopefully in that second day, maybe round 2, round 3. I just don't know if it'll last. And this is a guy that I love his size, his position versatility. And that's Trey Smith from Tennessee. Guys played left tackles, played left guard, and he's played both of them very, very well. Do you see him as an elite pass protector at the next level?
I don't know about pass protector yet, but he's a mauler in the run game. And I mean, he can get better there. And the thing about Trey, I think, what did he have, cancer or the blood clot? I can't remember what it was.
Blood clots, yeah, 2018.
Yeah, he battled all that. And, this is a guy that battled through that and showed a dedication to his team by coming back and playing. And he probably could have gone pro, could have sat out, but he stuck it out this year and played. And like I said, guys, I think that, as a pro scout, you look at a guy that's battled adversity and stuck it out and played rather than a guy that kind of backed out. I mean, I think that's something that you put in the back of your mind. But I do think Trey's an elite blocker, and I think he would fit in well with the Bears offensive line. I mean, the way they like to run the football. So, but yeah, I think he's a good player, and I think he'll be a first-round pick.
Go ahead, Neil.
Okay. So, hey, one guy that is really driving me crazy this year, and it seems like the more we go forward, the more that he's being talked about as a first-round guy, is, Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech. He's a guy that the last time we had a show, I was talking about the words I would write down in my notes as far as, how he plays. I write down soft and lazy. He continues to show up in, first rounds of mock drafts. The further we go into the season, I even saw one recently, as recent as this morning, where he was projected to go with the Bears with the first round pick. I cringed, right? I cringed. What are you hearing or seeing with this guy?
Well, he's had a good year, and Virginia Tech's their offense hasn't been the problem; it's been their defense this year, and another kind of average year for Justin Fuente. But he's a big kid; he's pretty athletic. Seems like he's had his best year this year. I don't think he's a first-round pick. I mean, you look at this draft. I mean, as far as skill guys go, this is another really, really good draft for skill players, and I just don't see him being a first-round pick. I think that's pretty high. I mean, I don't know. And guys, right now, it's been so hard to keep up with these players because games have been canceled, and you don't know what games being played, and still we don't know what some of these guys have gone to the combine yet, and all that stuff, and all the measurables that get involved with that. So, but I mean, I don't see him being a first round pick, but I think he could be a solid pro. I mean, he's had it, like I said, he's had his best season this year.
I'm with you. You touched on skill guys. All right. We consistently see top level skill athletes, cranked out in the South. This year offensively, you got the two receivers at LSU and Bama. You got the Tony and Pitts show at Florida. Justin Etienne Clemson. I can go on and on, right? And I asked this with Cohen and the injury in mind up here in Chicago. Tariq Cohen being like kind of a great game king type of guy, as Nagy likes to use him. If you're looking for a game breaker, difference maker type guy, who's the guy that you're going after if you're us?
What position?
If we're talking about just all around athlete, a tailback, a receiver, just a guy you want to get the ball in the hands and just to let him do work. Touchdown on every touch, potential type guy.
Yeah, the guy I like the most got hurt during the season. That's Jalen Waddle, but he is working out with Bama. I think it's going to be a stretch for him to play in the national championship game. But I talked to Danny and Alden about this before the year. I mean, he's worth the price of admission. He's one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen. And when he got hurt, we've seen the kind of the emergence more as a star for Devontae Smith, and this guy is putting up. I mean, he could win the Heisman if he has a big game in the SEC championship game. I mean, because not only is he a hard worker, Coach Saban loves him, but he doesn't look big as a minute. But the guy's strong. He runs great routes. He's got great hands. He's a team player. He can return punts. He blocks. If he has a big and I told you guys before the season, I thought Mac Jones could be a sleeper Heisman pick because just the offensive line that he had in front of him and him just throwing the ball to Devontae or Jalen or Najee out of the backfield, and they can score just like that, So right now, I mean, I think he'd be a great fit for Chicago. I think he'd be a great fit for a lot of teams. But I mean, just a dynamic player, and him returning that punt, last week against Arkansas was big for his Heisman candidacy. And if he does something like that again and maybe scores a touchdown or two, I think he could win it. I really do. But he's just a fantastic player, and he's a fantastic teammate. That's always a plus.
Sticking on the dynamic playmakers theme here, and two guys I've earmarked specifically from Florida, Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts. I think these guys are going to be even more explosive, even more productive at the next level. I think these are guys, again, that probably have better stats or be better players overall at the NFL level than they are currently at college, and they're damn good players right now in college. Do you agree with the potential that both Toney and Pitt's exhibit on the football field that at the next level they can be even better?
Oh yeah, Tony could be a dynamic slot player. I mean, he's just a big play threat. He's quick and shifty, and he's smart and runs good routes. And Pitts, I mean, he's the best tight end in the league. I don't know who he really reminds me of, but when he catches the ball, he's got those long strides. I mean, he just pulls away from defenses and just a fantabulous player. Got great hands, pretty good blocker too. So yeah, I mean, and like, I don't know why he didn't play last week. I mean, maybe they were overlooking LSU somewhat, but I'm gonna be interested to see what he does against Bama and what kind of game plan Nick Saban and those guys have against him, because nobody's been able to cover him all year. I mean, do you put a guy like Patrick Surtain, the best corner, on him, who's probably the top corner heading into this draft, or do you put a safety on him, or what do you do? I mean, or you put a Dylan Moses on him. I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see that matchup, and we'll see what happens in that game. But just a truly dynamic player, and I think he'll be a top 10 pick.
You touched on Devontae Smith a little bit there, Matt. I think. Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're there. You see him almost every week. Is he the best receiver to come out of Alabama in the last 5 years, in your opinion?
That's a tough question, man, because there's been some really good ones, and I think he's one of them, no doubt. I mean, and the thing is, guys, I mean, last year they had it's almost like they had so much talent there, you really didn't see how good he was. Because you got a Ruggs, you got a Judy or first-round picks, and you got a Waddle, and then you got him, But with Waddle being out, you've really seen his true talent. I mean, and again, his ability to return punts too. That's a big plus. I mean, dynamic punt returners are hard to find. I mean, and if you can score, doing that, I mean, that just adds to your value. And like I said, he doesn't look big, but he's strong. I mean, he's got some guns on him. He's got nice built legs. I mean, he's a powerful looking player. And like I said, Coach Saban loves him, and he's talked about him for the last 4 years. I mean, just how good of a teammate he is. And, I mean, when Nick Saban says that about a player, it's got to be an added bonus for that player.
Hey, so we touched on Trey Smith's story as a medical guy that persevered, overcame adversity, all those types of things. Is there another guy in this draft that has a really good storyline that we may not be privy to that you want to go ahead and share with us? Anything that really comes to mind?
I don't know about off the top of my head. I mean, I just there's so many players to evaluate and to think about. I probably can't think of one right now, but I don't know. Don't know off the top of my head.
All right. So I have a college football question for you, Matt. So, Illinois fired Lovie Smith this past Sunday after 5 seasons. I was just curious if you've heard any names being bandied about that could be a potential interest in the Illini job, and if not, who do you think would be a good candidate for Illinois to consider?
Well, man, I think the Coastal Carolina coach would be a good coach. I heard something about Army's coach today. I don't know if y'all want to go. Illinois wants to go to the triple option. I heard something about Brett Belima. Don't know if that would be a good fit. I think Illinois would be better served to get somebody in there that can score points. I mean, and bring an exciting brand of football, throwing the ball around. Maybe running some up tempo. Maybe Gus Malzahn could be a candidate there.
That was my next question.
I mean, Gus, the thing with Gus, I mean, and look, you're talking about a great guy. Always took the time to talk with me. He recruited great kids. He was in a tough league, and it's tough to win in the SEC West. It's a grinder, and of course you got your main rivals. On the best run in college football history, or one of them. So. And he beat him 3 times. So that could be a candidate. I mean, I really don't know. But, I mean, I think there's a lot of good players around that area up there. And I think you need to bring an exciting brand of football. I think – and that's what players want. Maybe Eric – I mean, I think Eric Bieniemy, I think the world of that guy. I think he's a great coach and him being around Andy Reid. I think he's going to be an NFL hire, though. Maybe a Joe Brady at Carolina. Maybe you bring him in because there's that Saints offense. He tore up the league in the SEC last year with that Saints offense, and I've seen it tear up opponents in the NFL for years. But, I mean, you come in and you bring a system like that and you place and you go, all right, you can be my Drew Brees. You can be my Michael Thomas. You can be my Jared Cook. You can be my Alvin Kamara. This is what I'm going to do with you. And the same thing with the enemy. I mean, you can be my Mahomes. You can be my Hill. You can be, and we're going to do this. We're going to have fun. We're going to score points. And I think that can sell to players, especially high school players, because let's face it, a lot of high school players want to get in the end zone, and that's where you make money.
With Malzahn, Matt, do you think this job would be considered a step down for him? I mean, I know it's a Big Ten, Power 5 conference, all that stuff, but Illinois doesn't have a great reputation in terms of recently for football. Do you think this would be a step down for Malzahn?
Yeah, I do. I mean, of course, but I doubt the guy wants to get out of coaching. He's a pretty competitive guy. So, I think I don't know. I was just throwing the name out there. I'm not in the Illinois athletic department, so I don't really know that. But I do think he'll want to continue coaching somewhere, and I do think he can still have success. The thing what Gus kind of got away from was having that dynamic running quarterback in his offense. Because if you're running the zone read plays, I mean, he had Cam, and then he had Nick Marshall, and then after Nick, it seemed like he started recruiting. And I don't know if this was because the pros were saying, well, we don't think Gus Malzahn's offense can work in the pros. But then all of a sudden you start seeing the pros kind of running it. Exactly. And he started recruiting drop back passers. Well, if you run a zone read and you're running motion and jet sweeps and stuff like that, and your quarterback can't run, then your defensive ends and linebackers aren't going to respect quarterback run. So you're basically hamstringing your offense, when you run that play. So, and he got away from that a little bit. And, Jarrett Stidham did it somewhat. And they had some success with him, but, I think he got away from what he knew best. And he stopped doing tempos somewhat too. And I think that eventually came up to bite him. Because if you're going to run tempo, a la what Lane Kiffin's doing at Ole Miss, you got to run tempo. I mean, like Chip Kelly did at Oregon. I mean, they got to play off every 13 seconds. I mean, that's tempo. But Gus they'd get into a pattern where they have personnel on the field. They look to the sideline, they sub in and out, and that's not tempo, So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I definitely think Illinois needs an exciting brand of football, and I think that could help, with recruiting.
Matt, you touched on something critical, I think, in the question before the last one, and talking about there being a really good amount of prep talent up here in Illinois, right? And I think one of the things that did Lovey in, especially towards the end, is if you look at his most recent recruiting classes, he didn't really have a whole lot of Illinois presence in those recruiting classes. And really, frankly, Northwestern has been dominating them on the recruiting scene, throughout the time that he's been down there in Champaign. Throughout my time in college football, I think that it's been crucial that you start and end your recruiting in your backyard. And maybe places like Alabama can get away with that because they're so national at this point that doesn't really so much matter, and they're recruiting 5 stars off the board. So I think the interesting thing about Malzahn is that, yeah, he doesn't really have a pulse on the recruiting landscape in the state of Illinois. But what that place does need, and I agree with you on, is it needs a touch of excitement. It needs dynamic. It needs somebody to bring something in there that is going to really wow kids, so to speak. With Malzahn and the way that his offense has sort of decreased in recent years, is that something that he can do offensively, or is he going to be relying on maybe like his persona, maybe his track record? The one championship ring that he has. What do you see really appealing to prep talent up here in the state of Illinois?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but the guy has won some, and his offenses have put up numbers. And when you're going to be going to Illinois, you're not going to be playing defenses for LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. That's a different ball game, you know. So I think he could have more success, you know, by not being in the SEC. And I think, like I said, I think he needs that dynamic dual threat in his offense, and that's what he got. I mean, look, and you guys mentioned on the player who maybe had a comeback story. I just thought about Zach Wilson. I think he got hurt, and he came back, and he's had a really good year at BYU. Malik Willis was at Auburn, and he never got to play. And, you know, he goes to Liberty, and now he's lighting it up under Hugh Freeze. I mean, that's just a guy that was kind of an afterthought at Auburn. And, you know, Auburn people were like, man, well, we never get to see this kid. We've heard he's pretty good. He won a couple state championships in Atlanta. So he was a good leader, and he's done well at Liberty. So, but I mean, yeah, I mean, with Gus though too, I think, like I said, he's got to have that great quarterback, and maybe, you know, sometimes we all need a little humble pie, you know, and maybe, you know, him, you know, getting fired. I mean, maybe he can kind of go back to his roots somewhat. But yeah, you're right about him not knowing the Illinois landscape. I mean, but I mean, I do think he's done enough where he could sell his offense, because Auburn's problem hadn't been recruiting skill guys. Their problem here lately has been recruiting offensive linemen. Right.
I hear you there. And hey, just speaking in general, as far as college football goes, you know, the committee came out with their rankings last night. I'm not a big committee guy personally. I think we could have been just fine with the BCS, but you know, that's not a popular opinion, I guess. But you know, just looking at what the committee has done in the recent years, especially what they've done this past year, it's a tough job right now. A bizarre number of games being played. Nothing's really on the same level. They're having to make a lot of tough decisions. In your eyes, where is the committee getting it? Where are they missing it? And what are you looking forward? What are you looking for this weekend with these conference championship games?
Well, I'm not so sure you should put a team. I'm going with Ohio State right here. I'm not so sure you should put a team that's only played 6 games when other teams have played 9 and 10 in the championship. Now, granted, and I will say this: we picked Ohio State to win the national championship before the year began, and we all know they're talented. So, but I mean, you got a team like Texas A&M that's played. They're going to have played 9 games. Their only losses to Alabama on the road. They've been playing really good football lately, and they're sitting there at number 5. Do you leave them out? You know, I mean, because Clemson and Notre Dame, you know, when everybody's saying if that's a tight game, you know, both of them are probably going to get in, which, you know, I don't know if that's fair or not, because Notre Dame beat Clemson without their best player, but they beat them. And so I don't know. I didn't understand Florida dropping only 2 spots. I mean, they dropped 2 spots. They lost to a team that's been getting drilled by people, and they lost it on their home field. You know, I didn't get a whole lot of that. I mean, and if they beat Alabama, I still think Alabama's in, but I don't think there's no way in hell they're going to beat Alabama. But I don't know. It's just in the Iowa State team. I mean, Iowa State, you know, and we talk about this COVID thing. I got to take my hat off to teams that still tried to play, although they were minus 5 or 6 starters on their football team. That first game that Iowa State played, yeah, they lost to a Sun Belt team. That Sun Belt team's pretty good, and they've been pretty good for the last couple of years. But they had like 5 or 6 starters out, you know. So, you know, and one of them was their really fine offensive guard. So I just, you know, and again, they bent the rules somewhat for Ohio State. I don't know if that's fair. I mean, Indiana played their share of games, but they beat Indiana. So I don't know. It's pretty intriguing, you know. But in the end, I think somewhat it comes down to money, you know. And you know, Ohio State's a big draw. You know, they have a lot of fans. They have a big fan base. So, but I mean, in the end, somebody's gonna get left out that probably shouldn't. But I think this weekend, I mean, a lot of good football games on, and you know, we'll see what happens with it. But that Iowa State team, they're playing really well. So Matt Campbell's done a hell of a job. That guy's a really good football coach, and he's a guy that might be on the radar for Auburn right now. I think Mario Cristobal's on the radar for Auburn right now. But you know, Campbell's done a heck of a job, and we'll see what happens, man. But I do think teams should be rewarded for playing every game they should, or every game they could.
100%. Matt, what are your thoughts on the Clemson Notre Dame ACC championship game?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see if if Clark Lee, leaving, if that's any distraction. I think it's going to be a good game. I'll probably give the edge to Clemson now that Lawrence is back, and Brent Venables, I think he'll have a good game plan for Notre Dame. But I do think Notre Dame's a strong team, and I think that should be a really good game. I mean, Notre Dame's offensive line's really good, and Ian Book's a guy that nobody ever really talks about. He's had a great career there at Notre Dame, and he should probably be in the running, for a Heisman, potential. So should be a good ball game. And but I'm not so sure if 2 ACC teams should get in if Notre Dame loses. So I don't know, man. It's kind of up in the air, and it's going to be a lot of pressure is going to be put on the committee, for who they put in the Final Four, because you can make arguments for a number of teams.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and before we let you go, we get a lot of comments in the chat room, and most of them all are related to Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU. People want your take on Wilson. What do you think about the quarterback?
Oh, like him. He's a gamer. Kind of runs around, makes plays. Kind of reminds me of Jeff Garcia a little bit. Smaller guy, but throws a good ball, moves around, can make plays with his feet. Really, really good player. And that Coastal Carolina BYU game, that was a heck of a football game. And that Coastal team's pretty good too. True freshman quarterback playing for Coastal. But really like Zach Wilson, and I think he could be a pro if he gets in the right system.
Excellent. And let people know where they can find you on social media, and go ahead and plug whatever you'd like.
Yeah, you can find me at Matt Lowe 777. Matt Lowe 777 at Twitter, and you can find us Facebook, Lindy Sports Mag. We're also at Lindy Sports Mag on Twitter, so you can find us there. And of course, my work's on lindysports.com, and I'll be writing for our magazines coming up. And yeah, man, we'll be doing the College Football National Champion magazine, and we'll be doing Major League Baseball, and we'll also do our draft book in February. And that's a really popular magazine. You can go ahead and pre-order now. We also do that one digitally. So that's what we got coming up, guys. And always appreciate y'all having me on and having Lindy Sports on.
Well, we love the publication and love talking to you. So I can't wait to our next chat. We'll probably get you either right before the NFL draft or right afterwards. And if you're down to talk baseball, when the baseball season comes up, we'll have you or one of the other Lindy's guys on, and we'll talk baseball on one of our other shows.
Oh, yeah, man, I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm a big Braves fan. And of course, I was heartbroken this year because I thought they could have had the Dodgers, but they let it slip away, which is a typical for Atlanta teams and Auburn teams. So usually the way it goes.
Yeah. We know about typical here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys went 100 years without a world championship for the Cubs. I don't know if you guys are Cubs fans or not, but yeah, man, baseball's a tough thing. You got to execute, pretty perfectly in the playoffs and that goes for football too. I mean, you just got to make plays when it counts. And it's just amazing how little bitty one or two mistakes cost you a ball game in the playoffs.
Go ahead, Neil. Tell them.
Oh, I know all too well.
No. Neil is sitting in front of an 8x10 National League.
It's not 8x10. It's 3x5. It's normal size.
It's a World Series. It's the Chicago Cubs World Series flag right behind him that he has put up on the wall perfectly so that we can see it every time he's on TV.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what. If you're a true sports fan, your team, you're loyal, tried and true. Because let's face it, there are a lot of bandwagon fans out there too. But if you're a true sports fan, and when your team does win it, it's the most amazing feeling.
Yeah, I
mean, because all the games you go to, all the time you spend watching, all the time you spend yelling, throwing stuff at the TV. You finally have your little moment in the sun. It's an awesome feeling.
Absolutely. Cherish it because you never know when it could come around. It could be another 100 plus years.
That's right.
All right, Matt, we'll let you go. And again, we'll be in touch soon. And good luck with publications. I'll be on the website soon and just subscribing to everything because you guys, again, do outstanding work.
Well, man, thank you guys. It was great to talk with y'all again, and y'all have a great Christmas and be safe. Take care, guys.
Likewise.
Thanks, Matt. You too.
Matt.
Take care.
Guys, that was outstanding. He is one of my favorite interviews here at the Bar Room. Anything that he shared with us that you want to comment on that kind of left an impression on, whether it was something that you agreed with or disagreed with? Danny, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that his take on Mac Jones, the Alabama quarterback, is spot on. And he said something that I had put in my notes as well in terms of his ability, Mac Jones' ability to probably one of the, if not the best deep ball thrower in this draft. He worked on his downfield accuracy, his ball placement. Really beginning of end of last year in that bowl game against Michigan, he kind of picked up the momentum there and just kind of carried it on into this season. And, we had our show early on this season about the quarterbacks, and I had a high second, second round grade on Mac Jones. And then and I think now he's played his way into the bottom half of that first round. So definitely a guy that I'm really, really high on. I think Matt is as well.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, man. I mean, what do we say in our very first show about how he just gets better every single game he plays? Since he came in after Tua got hurt last year, every single game has been an improvement. And went back and watched the Arkansas game earlier today too as well. And I mean, with Alabama games, you only can really watch the first half because the second half is a wash. But I mean, every first half of this kid that you watch, he's getting better every single week. He throws the most beautiful deep ball in his class. I wrote that down in my notes, actually, not to completely piggyback off you there, Danny. But I mean, we generally feel the same about a lot of different things, anyways. But the thing about Trask and the thing about Jones is that they both throw very, very beautiful deep balls, right? Trask has just such excellent touch on his deep ball. And he spins it really, really well. It's just the arm strength just doesn't seem like it's there all the time. But you watched what he did in the second half, coming out of a rough first half against LSU last week. And he really got them back in the game in that third quarter and led them back to, really have a chance to win. The fourth quarter wasn't that great, but I mean, that third quarter, it was a response. And, both those guys are going to have a shot. I just am not fired up about those guys as, their athletic ability doesn't scream elite, certainly doesn't scream, a whole lot of functional. But at the same time, what they do with their arm and what they could do as far as, reading defenses and executing plays, they're going to be guys that could sneak in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into this now, or Aldo, if you want to hold it off till later on. But yeah, in terms of Trask, I had a question specifically about his mechanics. I wonder if Neil picked up on the same thing that I've been seeing. So I can ask an hour.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, with Trask, Neil, you see like when he wants to get the ball out, and he knows he has to throw a deep out or get the ball downfield. You see him kind of doing more of a wind up in his motion. Taking a little bit more time. His release point isn't always as fast or as accurate or on time, I should say. It's a mechanical thing. Could it be something that he coached up and get to a point where he gets a more consistent release on his? I'm talking about quickness. Getting the ball out of his hand quicker. Sure, probably, but that arm strength, and plus that release inconsistency for me are things that kind of. You talked about him not being a great athlete. True. But the thing about him is at 6'4", 230 pounds, this guy takes a hit, can get back up again, and he's got good pocket awareness. You see him shuffling his feet, sliding left and right, buying some more time, finding that passing lane and get that ball through. So, I know he's not going to, be a guy that's going to be athletic as some of the other kids we're talking about later on, but his pocket presence is nice. It's just that arm strength and his inconsistencies on his release timing is really things that kind of have me on the fence with him.
Yeah, and that's where I go with him as far as mechanics go. You watch him navigate the pocket, and he does a really good job of not necessarily just blatantly avoiding pressure, but what he does is, as far as things that are subtle, and he does all the little things really well with his lower body. And if the thing I'll always go back to with Dan Mullen quarterbacks is that he's big on upper body mechanics. Sure, every quarterback coach is, every head coach is, every quote-unquote quarterback guru is. But I think the thing that separates Dan Mullen when it comes down to it is that he is almost to a Nazi level about lower body mechanics. And you see that with Trask, and you see the consistent improvement with him as well. And what he does as far as just maneuvering the pocket and just manipulating rushers and stepping up, stepping to the side, just subtle here and there and up and down and this way and that. is to a special level as far as lower body mechanics goes. I think what you touched on as far as how he gets the ball slow sometimes, I definitely see that. I think those are coachable things. When he gets to the next level and, he gets, to the point to where he's with NFL guys, he's in an NFL offense and everything else, not to say that Dan Mullen's offense isn't, but, he's going to have the ability to hone in on those skills a little bit more, take school out of the equation, you don't have to worry about school classes, 100% football all the time. He'll figure it out. I think he's going to have a shot to, go late in the first round. Like I said, he's going to go to a place like Pittsburgh that has a similar quarterback that does similar things. He's going to be back there, in a very balanced offense, running play action, completing the throws that the defense gives him. I think he's going to have a nice long career. I don't think that he necessarily fits with what Nagy wants to do, which is why I always bring up the whole athletic thing. And I think, for me, if I'm drafting him for the Bears, I see value for him in the third, fourth round, because a guy with an arm like that can process like that can complete the throws that he makes. If he's available in the fourth round, I think you got to just go ahead and roll the dice on him, especially since you're not guaranteed what the money you're going to pay him to a high level. That's where I see value with him. I think there's other teams that will see him with high late first round, high second round value, and that's where that's going to stay.
Yeah. Speaking of Bears and Trask, I did ask former college director of college scouting for the Chicago Bears, Greg Gabriel, on the last Draft on Tap. On the last Greg Gabriel and Schuster Talk Bears. It was actually David Schuster who asked the question about Kyle Trask, and this is Greg's response.
Not that arm strength is that important, but the ball kind of floats, which I don't like. Accuracy is good, and his touch is good, but he plays in a half-field offense. But you don't see him reading the whole field. And a lot of times he's going to number one only. Sometimes he'll get to number two, but number two is always on the same side of the field. You don't see him, looking to the right and then come back to the left. And that's what I keep looking for when I'm watching college quarterbacks. So, yeah, the guy's a good quarterback. I don't see a first-round quarterback. Could be a second-round quarterback. Without making a school call and finding out about the intangibles, how he learns, how his teammates react to him, what kind of leadership value does he have. Unless you know that, it's hard to say. I'm just looking, basically at 4 tapes that I watched the end of last week and through Saturday, and I wasn't all that impressed.
Any thoughts on what Gabriel said there, Danny?
That's basically what I've been trying to say. Is I don't think his arm strength is something that could play well here. We've talked about his lack of athletic ability in terms of back there in the pocket. Yeah, he's got the size, 6'4", 230. You would love to see that. You see a lot of that half field reads. And a lot of times when he goes to the opposite side of the field is when the play is breaking down or is feeling some pressure and he's got to get rid of the football. So then he tends to go ahead and look away. So, but yeah, I mean, I spot on by Greg, and that's the same thing I'm thinking as well. Is a guy that's why I'm so hard. Like I hear a lot of praise for this kid. By all accounts, this kid is a hard worker. He's a dedicated, dedicated athlete. He's a guy that is in the film room, is in the playbook and all that stuff, and his teammates like him. It's just that physically that limitation with that arm. And again, I know arm strength isn't all end all be all, but it's to the point where I would like to have him at least have a little bit above average arm strength. I just think for him it's probably average. And again, playing in conditions where it could be raining, could be heavy winds. You have to be able to drive that football down the field. And remember, now you're going to be going up against some NFL tap, defensive backs, top talent, athletic ability, all that stuff. Those guys are gonna be able to jump on that throw, especially if he doesn't be able to correct his mechanics as well. So yeah, I mean, I see him more in the second round kind of range for me too as well. But again, his downfield accuracy in terms of placement, touch on the football is pretty impressive.
Well, let's stay on this topic of your board on the quarterbacks. One of our first shows, you guys did your board on the quarterbacks, and I'm sure things have changed because you had Zach Wilson as a third-round prospect, and that was before really the season started, and I'm betting that he's jumped up on your board. So let's talk about the top 10 quarterbacks that you guys liked on this, and I've got a graphic that I can run underneath you guys. There it is. We'll call it the draft on tab board, and there's your top 10 quarterback prospects. Neil, let me just begin with you, because you've been seeing the praises of Zach Wilson early on. Tell me, clearly you don't see him as a third round caliber quarterback anymore? You see him as a first rounder? Do you see him as a top 10 pick? I've seen a lot of draft boards where he's going in the top 10. Your thoughts?
A lot of draft boards are now starting to put him in the top 10. I think that's a little bit ambitious. However, I don't see him lasting past the middle of the second round. I think this kid has had one hell of a year coming back from the injury stuff from the year before. And he's really proven that he possesses all the things that you need from just a pure quarterback skill standpoint of things. The way that he manipulates his arm, he can use different arm angles to make throws. He's an ultimate leader. Obviously, you see the C on his shirt. He's leading that team each and every week. And really the only sort of ho-hum game he's had all year was that Coastal Carolina game, which was kind of like an odd, awkward deal that would never happen in a normal season. You don't turn around, prep for a team across the other side of the country in just a matter of hours, right? I mean, let's be honest. That game was scheduled, 3 days out in advance, 4 days out in advance?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty tough to prepare for a team and just go in there and crush somebody. But the thing you love about the kid is his accuracy, is his ability to throw guys open. He has excellent placement on balls. He can ad lib. He can run with the ball. He can make plays with his legs. Not a true dual threat guy like really a lot of these guys are. But he is athletic enough to be able to go ahead and be dangerous with his legs and make plays down the field. The thing about that Coastal Carolina game is that being the only game he's really had that was sort of ho-hum all year. You look at his numbers, he's completing 73.2% of his passes. I think without that game, he's probably number 2 in the country as far as completion percentage. He's thrown for over almost 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 3 picks, inching closer towards a 200 quarterback passer rating as far as efficiency goes. And in terms of using his athletic ability, he's ran for 242 yards, scored 8 touchdowns with his feet. Some of the throws he's made this year, hitting receivers like this, for big plays. The different arm angles, the kind of Patrick Mahomes like type of stuff. And I think there's been some comments this year where people may think he's trying to be too much like Patrick. They think he's trying to be too much like Patrick. I think he's just going out there and making plays, man. The kid's a big time player. He's got the confidence. He's got the moxie. He's a big time team leader. He puts the ball in places where his receivers can get it. I love everything about this kid. And I feel like if we end up on the course that we're at right now, speaking of the Bears, if the Bears end up in the course where they're at right now, they end up with pick, 15 to 20, I have zero problem with them going ahead and picking Zach Wilson. I've been waving the pom-poms since week 1, man. I'm on board.
Yeah, and as for me, I mean, my thing with Zach Wilson coming into the season, he had a couple of injuries last couple of years, and I saw last year's tape. I saw some of that velocity off of his fastball, and I just was questioning if that's is going to be a lingering issue. Obviously, watching him play this season, that's not a lingering issue. Neil touched on it, and in terms of his ability, his stats, he's demonstrated that he's fully healthy. His accuracy downfield, his ability to be able to maneuver in the pocket, to be able to buy some extra time and continue to look downfield and find guys and go for that big play is evident on tape. The kid's exciting prospect. The one thing that I'm going to caution everybody is the schedule they played this year. I know it was a weird year, and then BYU put the schedule haphazardly together, and they're just trying to find people to play. It's not the most competitive schedule out there in college football. So a lot of these stats could be padded against some opponents that aren't really, you consider top notch. Now, Coastal Carolina, a ranked team gave him fits. I mean, the pressure kind of got to him. You saw him having to move his launch point. He had to, move up in the pocket, kind of step away from pass rusher, and that kind of bothered him. You saw him kind of get a little bit rattled there for me. I think it was 19 for 30 for only 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception in that game. So that's something that I'm kind of have some things I want to see him probably produce more against some better competition. However, he probably won't get anything better than that. Most likely, I think Coastal Carolina is like top 13 or something like that right now. So they're a pretty solid team. But in terms of, physical traits, athletic ability and all that stuff, the injury concern was something that I was concerned about earlier, but like I said, now he's, he's playing, he's healthy. And his downfield accuracy and his arm strength are all back. And I think he's definitely an exciting prospect. My question for you guys is, right now the Bears are in that 12, 15 range in that first round, right? If you're sitting there, if you're the Bears, you're sitting there with Trey Lance, with only 1 year of a starting experience, but a superior athlete, a guy that jumps out at you on tape, that guy that has potential, Lamar Jackson ability with the ball in his hands as a ball carrier, and also some pretty good potential as a quarterback, or a Zach Wilson. How are you guys leaning? I think that's a scenario that might play out if you're the Bears.
Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I agree, and that's really the only reason why he's not my number 3 guy right now. Because there's a lot to like about the potential, the unlimited ceiling that you have with a guy like Trey Lance. His ability to break down with his legs and make big time plays with his legs is exceptional. And you talk about Zach Wilson not playing great competition. Trey Lance isn't exactly playing world beaters either. But the one game that he had this year, really sort of a rusty first half, right? Second half, came out, made the adjustments, settled down, went back to being Trey Lance. And he ran for 143 yards in that game and 2 touchdowns, made some amazing throws that second half to really win that game against a team that really they had no business losing to. And you look at what he did last year as far as the stats go, not throwing a pick. The only pick he threw his entire college career was last week. So, or not last week, but, earlier in the season. But, the thing about Trey Lance, again, I think you just got to look at the cost of drafting a guy that has an unlimited ceiling versus a guy that has done it at the highest level and led a team to victories and played a full season and has a lot of play history. And a guy like Zach Wilson, it's going to be an interesting conversation we're going to continue to have for a couple months now.
Yeah, and having been burned with the Mitchell Trubisky draft where he only had 1 season as a starter, I'm definitely looking at a guy like Zach Wilson, who has had some 25, 30. I'm looking right now, 29 starts as a college football player, while Trey has had less than half that. So that's the big deciding factor for me. I like both of those quarterbacks a lot, and you probably can't go wrong with either one. But if I had to prioritize them right now today, I got my eyes on Zach Wilson. So that's my response to that. My question to you guys is, what about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields? Is there any possibility that you might see Fields become the number 1 overall pick in the draft, or is Trevor a lock to be the first guy taken?
Coming into the season, I thought Justin Fields certainly had a chance to be the first overall pick and to bypass Trevor Lawrence. I had some, nitpicking again, but I had some questions in terms of Trevor Lawrence, in terms of sometimes he could look a little robotic out there. Some of his downfield accuracy was kind of hit or miss, but I think, having seen him this season, I think he progressed nicely. I think he's corrected some of those issues. Now you see him a little bit more consistent with his downfield accuracy. Obviously, the size and the star potential that he's got. I think Lawrence has pretty much cemented himself as the first overall pick. Plus, Justin Fields only played 6 games, so that also kind of hurt him a little bit. Last year was his first real year as a starter, so now he's got a year and a half of tape. So I think it's going to be Lawrence 1, Fields 2. The only unfortunate part is I don't think the Bears have any way of getting either one of those prospects.
Well, unless they're going to make a blockbuster trade and basically trade the entire team, and that's highly unlikely that would even be a possibility. It's just not going to happen, but you're absolutely right. Neil, your thoughts on those 2 quarterbacks? Any chance that Fields might leapfrog and get to be the first overall pick in the draft?
There's zero chance of that happening. And I think the reason why is because if you talk to some of the guys in the scouting community, I think the one thing that really separates Lawrence from Fields is Lawrence's ability to really be a coach on the field. The Lawrence runs that offense. The offense passes through him, and he has the greenest of all green lights. Excuse me. He has the greenest of all green lights to go ahead and do whatever he needs to do to go ahead and execute plays, win games, get the ball out and score. So that's where I think he excels as far as a prospect over Fields. The thing with Fields is he's looking to the sideline. He's basically running what the coaches give him, and that's something that Fields is going to have to become more accustomed to at the next level, is allowing the offense to roll through him. And as far as athletic ability, I think Fields has all of the dual threat tools that you want. I mentioned before, the thing I really like about Justin Fields, though, is that given the fact that he has all these athletic tools, right? Given the fact that he can go ahead and make a ton of plays and rack up a ton of yards and stats with his feet, he's not a run first guy. He is a quarterback first, run second type of guy. And that's very attractive about a dude that does have that kind of special athletic ability about him. It's absurdly attractive, but when it comes down to it, Lawrence is the easy number one in my mind.
And the thing about Lawrence is as impressive as he's been a starter, freshman high school, started all 4 years as a high school, kid, athlete. He started as a freshman at Clemson. He's been starting, all 3 years at Clemson. So the one thing that I will kind of touch base with Neil on Justin Fields, that he gets the plays called in from the sidelines, and that's something he's going to have to get used to, being able to call plays in the huddle, recite plays, and all that stuff. But he still has to go out there and execute the play. And I think his ability, his athletic ability from the pocket, I think he's shown. We've done Aldo and I've done some YouTube clips of Fields where his ability to process and be able to manipulate safeties and linebackers, hold them and make them pause for a split second there to get his receivers open. I think that's something that he showed great development in from his, from last year as his first year as a starter. So I think that's only going to continue to get better, though. I have no issues with him in terms of executing plays. Something he is you're right, Neil, he's going to have to get used to is being able to recite those plays, call those plays in the huddle. But in terms of going out there and executing, the kid to me is just a star in the making as well. I think him and Lawrence are going to be 1 and 2 or top 5 for sure. That's why I said earlier I think this is a draft that's going to have 5 first round quarterbacks, possibly 6. And if you're a team like the Bears or other teams, I did a little exercise today, and I think there are 6 teams I wrote down that for sure need a quarterback. Another 7 that could potentially need a quarterback. So you're talking about 13 NFL teams that are going to probably look for quarterbacks. So I think this is the year. If you're a team looking for a quarterback like the Bears are, this is the year you make the move and you get your future signal caller.
Well, let's talk about these quarterbacks that could go in the first round. Clearly, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson.
And Mac Jones for me.
And Mac Jones for you. Not Sam Ellinger, huh?
As much as it hurts me, I gotta be realistic. No, I think with these 5, I think they have kind of distinguished themselves in terms of downfield accuracy, size, overall arm strength, and I think production as well. So although if I'm the Bears and I don't get one of these 5 quarterbacks and I'm sitting in the second round and a kid like Sam Ellinger is sitting there, looking me straight in the face, I'm running up there doing hand sprints or somersaults or whatever you want to call to get him on my team. But and for me right now, I think 5 are going in the first round.
I agree with that. I have 5, potentially 6. And really honestly, Trask is that one kind of wild card where he's I think he's a very specific quarterback as far as the type of offense that he goes into, but I think he could have late first round value, and we'll see what he does this weekend against Alabama. But I really think there's a strong 5 guys that are going to go first round. Just a matter of, between Lance, Wilson, and Mac Jones, where those guys sort of, fall, amongst themselves, because I think at this point, those are 3 guys that could really be on the same level right now. I think it's Lawrence 1, Fields 2, and then those 3, and then, the other guys. Trask, Ellinger, and Mond, I think, and then there was a separation below Mond.
Right, but beside after Ellinger and Trask, I mean, there's a drop off, right? You're talking about a guy not taking chances on guys on day 3. We talked about Kellen Mond, a guy who's got the size, the frame, the arm strength, the athletic ability, dual threat quarterback, but he's very inconsistent, and I think. Jimbo Fisher coming there, I thought was going to help him. He got a little bit better, but you still see the craziness in terms of, there's a drive where he's just absolutely perfect on time, hitting receivers in stride, allowing them to get those yak yards, the yards after the catch. And then on subsequent drive later, his feet are all over the place. The ball's sailing over the receiver. He's bouncing the ball. It's like that consistency for Mon is what I I'm looking for, and I'm just not seeing on a week in, week out basis. So, and then we got guys you're taking a chance on, guys like, Purdy from Iowa State, Pickett from Pittsburgh. He got hurt this year. He's a guy that I think is a nice developmental guy you bring in late day 3 or whatnot, and guy can develop. But there's a huge drop off after those first 7 guys.
Yeah, 100%. I think the one thing that's interesting though is, you got that Jamie Newman kid, right? And I have been critical of Newman about transferring to Georgia for the sole purpose of showing the NFL what he can do in a big time offense. And, he goes and sits a year out. It drives me crazy, but you're still talking about a kid that has some really interesting tools and some skill sets and things of that nature that, it'd be hard to pass up a potential developmental guy like that in about the 3rd or 4th round as well. So that's kind of another wild card that I see just sort of kicking around in the background a little bit below this list of guys that we're talking about that could really come into play on potentially day 2.
The one thing about Newman, Neil, I don't know if you heard the same thing, is because with the NCAA that this year is that they're allowing guys, if you wanted to come, even if you've been like a 5th-year senior or whatnot, if you want to come back for another year of eligibility, they're allowing guys to come back. So right. Newman's kicking around the idea of coming back and competing for that position either at Georgia. I'm not sure if it's going to be at Georgia or another school, but he's thinking about it. So because he sat out this season, there's some negative talk behind why he sat out, just the same way like Matt was talking about, like, we've talked about, it was shocking, it was surprising, scuttlebutt in terms of, he wasn't ready to compete, whatnot. But there's an opportunity or a chance that I should say that he might come back for another year. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, Newman's a guy that's got the size, arm strength, talent, just another guy that's been really just a 1-year starter with a lot to prove.
What are your thoughts on a guy that we really haven't talked about much at all, the quarterback over at Georgia, JT Daniels?
He's a guy, to be honest with you, I wasn't a big fan of him at USC. I know he tore his ACL and he had one good game with, I think it was his first game with Georgia. Another kid that it shows a lot of inconsistencies for me. Not a guy that I've really caught my eye in terms of a pro prospect. Could be a chance to be a really good college quarterback. I'm not sure how Neil feels about it, but for me, he hasn't really caught my eye in terms of a guy that I'm going to look to project as an NFL starter.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's really caught my eye about him is the fact that this offense really got rolling when he was inserted as a starter. When he came back from, I forget what injury it was, but when he got back at QB1, that offense really seemed to take off. I got to do a lot more work on him, admittedly. I've been doing basically, quick TV scouting from afar, switching back and forth between games on my, 35 different TVs that I have set up in my
Nice.
living room on a week in, week out basis, but he's certainly worth a look and, worth more, homework being done on.
The reason I brought up the kid from Georgia, his name Daniels, is because Dane Brugler has him ranked at number 7, his list over at the Athletic. And by the way, I'm bringing up Dane because he's agreed to come on to the show and talk to us after the new year. But he's got Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones as his top 5. And then at 6, he's got Kyle Trask, JT Daniels, and then the kid from Cincinnati, Desmond Ritter. What are your thoughts on this big kid, 6'4", 220 pounds? Danny, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like Ritter. He's a guy that in our initial show, I mentioned he's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. He's about 6'4", 6'3", 200 plus pounds. Another dual threat guy, the guy that really is someone that, for that size, got those long legs, big strider, makes up a lot of ground when he's running the ball, and he's very, very productive with his legs. He's a guy that I was talking to Neil about him. I think this is a guy that has a chance. He's a junior, so I'm not sure if he's going to go ahead and come make the the leap and come out this year. But definitely a guy that intrigues me. Not a guy that I would muster to use a first round pick on. But definitely a guy that intrigues me, maybe a developmental guy. You get him in the 3rd, 4th round, something like that. You'll hit him sit on the bench for a couple of years and learn. But definitely a guy, for me, like when I first saw him, I thought of Colin Kaepernick, that type of skill set. A guy's got decent arm strength, can make all the throws, tall kid, sees over the pocket and is very, very mobile, and is able to get away from pass rush and be able to use his legs as a weapon.
Yeah, while we're on the topic of juniors and guys that could potentially come back, let's note the date that these guys have to declare for the draft, and that's January 18th. And I know we're not going to have a show until probably about a month from now, right before that date. So, as far as our listeners, we would want to really, keep an eye on, who goes ahead and declares for the draft, and as we get closer to that date, who's going to go ahead and pull back from their declaration. Yeah. But that's what it's going to end up being. And really, all these guys, now the NCAA has gone ahead and tacked on another year on top of what these guys already have. So some guys could have 6 years, some guys are going to have 5 years, whatever the case may be. Pretty much everybody's going to have to go ahead and declare for the draft. You're going to have 500 declarations for the draft because of the extra added on year of eligibility. So that's going to make things really interesting going forward.
We've got a question in the chat from let's see, it's Steve. What about Howell, North Carolina, and Book with the Irish? Your thoughts on those two QBs?
Sam Howell, I believe he's a sophomore, so I don't think he's draft eligible. Neil, correct me if I'm wrong on him.
I think you're right.
20-year-old sophomore, correct.
Yeah, so plus you guys want another quarterback from North Carolina, really? No, that was a joke. And in terms of Ian Book, listen, I've said it before. To me, he's at best a third string, maybe a backup quarterback. I know he's had a great season this year, and Neil, I know you're a Notre Dame fan. No disrespect there, but for me, Ian Book, he's gotten better from last year. I mean, I see his pocket presence is a little bit better. His play clock in his head is a little bit faster. He's athletic enough to be able to escape a pass rush, create plays with his leg, and also buy some time back there in the pocket. But for me, he's just not a NFL starting quarterback, and that's what my general manager asked me to go find him a NFL starting quarterback. And for me, Ian Book is not a starting NFL quarterback.
Ian Book has had a hell of a year, but that's, I think, as far as that goes at this point, he's got a lot to prove going forward. And I think he's one of those guys who really, if he's going to do anything worth, opening eyes from that standpoint, it's going to happen at a Senior Bowl type of event. It's going to happen at Combine. It's going to happen at Pro Day. It's going to happen in his first 5 years in the league, because I don't think he's going to be drafted anywhere to make a difference. I think he's a guy that's just going to go ahead and have to work his way on up. Throughout the course of his career,
Neil? Is he 5'10", 5'11"?
He's listed as 6 foot, I believe.
Right. He's probably like a 5'10", 5'10" and a half most like. So yeah, and a guy that's again athletic, but I just don't see him as an NFL starting quarterback.
Well, I got to tell you,
this year. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that you guys didn't have him on your board for the 7 rounds, and probably had him as an undrafted free agent target. And that was
we had him in the 7th round.
Really? 7th? Do you have him higher than the 7th round now, based on what you've seen the last few weeks?
Me, no. I don't know about Neil, but me, no.
I could see him honestly going late rounds. I could see him going 6th or 7th, and mainly because he's got play history and he's had a really good year. He's shown rapid improvement, right? And he's won games for him. Mm-hmm. You go back and look at the Clemson game, and he made all the plays he needed to make in that game to win that game for him. I know they had other players on offense and defense that made big plays too, but those are games in the past where he shows up and sort of lays an egg. And if he didn't lay an egg, it would be so middle of the pack, might do some things good enough. He was a picture of consistently inconsistent throughout the course of his entire career, which for me, during the first show, I wanted to go ahead and call him a free agent guy. He was a Sunday guy to me, is what he was. Mm-hmm. Free agent signing after the draft, and if he didn't get signed on Sunday, maybe get invited to a camp. But based on what he did throughout the course of his career, that's where I thought he was going to end up. But you watch what he did this year; he's made a case for himself. And play history is a big thing, guys. Play history is a real thing. When it comes into scouting, and there's going to be. Yeah, right. And he's won more games than any other Notre Dame quarterback in the history of the program. He's got a ton of starts. I think he's going on 40-some starts at a big time program in Notre Dame. There's GMs that are going to bite on that just because you're talking about a kid that's smart. You're talking about a kid that's won a ton of games. There's a lot to be said for that.
Mm-hmm. There's a team like maybe Seattle, right? They're looking for a quality backup quarterback. Typically, Schneider's good at trading down, accumulating a lot of late round picks. He might take a flyer on a kid like Book in the 6th, 7th round and bring him in as a backup to Russell Wilson. So I mean, teams like that could take a chance on him. But I think in terms of projecting him as an NFL starting quarterback, for me, it's very hard to do that right now.
Yeah, and
so he's certainly going to have to climb the ladder.
Right. Well, and he could with a excellent performance against Clemson, and then in the bowl games. I mean, that could be the biggest piece of tape that he could put out there that could leapfrog him from the seventh, from the end of day 3 to the top of day 3. And I think that's what we're talking about. He's definitely a day 3 quarterback, but where in day 3 is the big question. For me personally, I like the fact that he wins games, and he does it with a will to win attitude. And I'm also particularly impressed with the way he has just gotten better and better and better. And I don't think that we've seen the ceiling. I think that, there's the possibility that despite the fact he's an undersized guy, that he can improve dramatically. Now, I'm with you, Danny. I'm not projecting him as a starting quarterback, but you also got to think about just filling that pipeline with quarterbacks. And so if he's available there in the 6th round, I don't even think the Bears have a 6th round pick. They've got 5 picks this year. But if he's available in late rounds, I might, take a flyer on him, because you just want to have somebody in camp. I would rather have Ian Book at camp than Tyler Bray. Anybody disagree with that?
I know you're going to go there. I knew you're going to go there. You're just waiting to bring up Tyler Bray's name on this show. Another chance for Ian Book to impress is Senior Bowl. He's been invited, and he accepted his invite to the Senior Bowl. So that's going to be a huge week for him as well. If he goes down there, he competes and impresses coaches down there, that's another way for him to go ahead and get himself drafted as well.
Mm-hmm. Neil, did I hear you say you agreed with me?
Yeah, 100%, man.
All right.
I'll take Ian Book over Tyler Bray. So about guys who's just been collecting a paycheck over the past however many years he's been here. How many years has he been here? He's got roots in the ground, it feels like.
Tyler Bray's like a 5th-year senior.
That's right.
Who was that guy? Harvey Unga, the running back that never left?
That's right.
He's a new Harvey Unga. That's what he is.
Oh, that's funny. All right, let's turn our attention to the present day Chicago Bears, because there's really huge news this week based on Mitchell Trubisky's performance against the lowly Houston Texans. But the question is, did he show enough to you guys to say, well, wait a minute here, maybe now we are starting to see the results of John DeFilippo working with this young quarterback, and the results of a scheme that plays to his strengths and play calling by Bill Lazor that utilizes what Mitchell Trubisky does best and avoids what he is incapable of doing. Let me start with you first, Neil. Tell me what your thoughts were on Mitchell Trubisky's performance against the Houston Texans.
Man, it's starting to feel a little bit like 2018, isn't it, guys? Holy cow. The past 2 weeks, we're scoring points. We're looking good. The defense is playing lights out. I mean, you look at Mitch's stats the past couple of weeks. 74% completion, 534 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. 126 quarterback rating last week, 108 the week before. They had no business losing that game the week before. But, last week we just went out and just dominated that Houston Texans team in all ways, shapes, and forms. Mitch looked sharp. Excuse me. My mouth is so dry right now. He's completing passes on time. And, he's also looking better as far as reads go. I know he's mainly a half-field read quarterback, like we were talking about before with one of these other guys. But, he's doing the right things. He's getting the ball to the right guy. He's not short-hopping passes. He looks confident. He looks comfortable. And especially last weekend when he did get a little bit of pressure, he navigated it. I can't be upset about the way he's looked the past couple of weeks. And, this is really, really encouraging, guys. I'm really amped up to see what he does against, Jacksonville coming up, and what he does against the Packers in the last week. I think we really have a shot to see some some positive stuff to end the year here with the kid. I love it for him too. I'm sure he's a great guy. You don't like seeing good guys fail, right? Mm-hmm. You like to see this guy, actually have, some redemption a little bit. And that's what it's looked like the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. It's making plays. I'm excited. Right.
Danny has been shaking his head left and right, east and west, so he clearly does not agree with your optimism on Trubisky. Danny?
You guys, to answer your question, Aldo, no. Right. So If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. All right. Now, to kind of expand on those comments, has he looked better the last couple of weeks with Bill Lazor calling the plays? Yes. But what pisses me off is, why did it take this long for this coaching staff to realize that this kid cannot operate from the pocket? He cannot process from the pocket. The game is just too quick for him. Now, when you roll him out, you move the pocket, you make him, like we were talking about with Kyle Trask, or Greg Gabriel was talking about Kyle Trask, you make him a half field thrower, or half field, just read half the field, option 1, option 2. That's it. That's where he can go ahead and he can become competent, right? But if you're going to go ahead and just be naggy and just be like, I'm hard-headed, I'm going to make him a pocket passing quarterback, he just doesn't have it. And typically in year 4, if a quarterback cannot process the game in year 4, it's pretty much lights out for him. Now, have there been cases and examples where, later on in the quarterback's career, he goes to a different place or maybe a different coach and are able to, get more out of him? Sure. The first name that comes to mind is Ryan Tannehill. He goes to Tennessee and he's a productive, good quarterback. However, for the Titans are not winning because of Ryan Tannehill, right? When you're the second overall pick in the draft, teams should damn well win because of you, not despite of you. So if you're gonna make him productive like they are doing now, which I agree with, moving him out of the pocket, getting him on the move, using his athletic ability, making him a half field reader, that's only good. That only takes you so far. Eventually, teams are going to be able to bottle him into the pocket and make him make reads from the pocket and make him beat you from the pocket. And he's shown in the past he can't do that. Okay, he did these last 2 weeks against Detroit Lions and against the Houston Texans. Aldo, as a matter of fact, I wanted to text you because remember, I think it was a couple weeks ago, you said, teams quit on coaches, and these are NFL, these are professionals, they don't quit. The Texans quit on Sunday. That was a team that quit on their coach. Now, I don't know if because they knew once they got down, they don't have their top playmakers on offense. It was basically Deshaun Watson and a bunch of scrubs and that pitiful offensive line versus the Bears defense. I don't know if that's what was the reason why, but that team quit. I saw quit in the Texans. So, this week they're playing the Vikings. Again, a team that's in their division. A team's got a good, defensive coordinator in terms of a head coach that calls good defenses. But they're also a team that's hurting, right? They're not a team that's going to be a top-notch defense. Let's see how it does against them. But again, with him being so limited in terms of only being able to process half a field and being able to be effective on rollouts and all that stuff, I think you're limited with Trubisky as your starting quarterback. What did impress me, and I don't know if you guys want to move on this or not, but is that offensive line.
Yeah, Let's hold on on the offensive line, because I want to stay on the topic of Trubisky, because I think both of you guys are making really solid points. And I feel there was a scene in the old Gilligan's Island show where Gilligan was looking this way. Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, and that's how I feel when I hear you guys talking. And in looking at this tape, let me put this tape back in. I want to show you one of the things that may have made this game an aberration. And I don't read tape like you guys do. So the reason I'm showing this to you and sharing my opinion is because I want to learn. So here's Mitch. This is a solid pass over the middle, good read and so forth. But I saw this happen over and over again against the Texans. He looks downfield, doesn't see anything, and then he dumps it off short. Now, this is a perfect example. But look at the Texans, how far off they're playing all of these safety valves. I mean, they're practically giving away the first down. You're giving away 10 yards before there's any contact. That's a perfect example there to Jimmy Graham. Watch it here again. They wide open on a short little pass over and over again. I think Mitch had some 260 some yards passing. I would say 200 of those yards were based on the Texans just playing so soft. Look at it again. Look at that. I mean, is this normal, guys? Because I don't recall this ever being normal. And you saw it over and over and over again. And so you're right. We have to see progression against the Minnesota Vikings this week. We've got to see him look downfield and actually find the open man and complete that pass. And you bet that the Vikings have looked at this tape and they're going to say, we gotta stop that short passing game. Let's not give him 10 yards to run after he's dumped it off on a safety valve play. Thoughts?
Neil, we don't take it. Go ahead. You want to go first?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Again, for me, Aldo, you called it. In terms of the play calling, the design, whether it's Bill Lazor creating the stuff or it was just the Texans playing some horrible coverage. The plays were there, the easy throws were there for him to make, and then that's how the Bears were able to go up and down the field and get those nice stats, pad the stats for Trubisky. When you ask him to go ahead and sit in the pocket. And I think Minnesota's going to do that. I think Minnesota's going to say, "You're right. We know you're athletic. We know once you get out of the pocket, you're on the move. It makes things easier for you. The game's kind of easier for you. We're going to keep you in the pocket." And because that was the book on Trubisky last year, was keep him contained, keep him in the pocket, and make him make throws from there. And I think that's what I'm assuming that's what Minnesota's going to try and do, and make him try and beat them from the pocket. And that's where he gets into trouble. That's where he doesn't see guys underneath, whether the defender's playing a robber coverage and he's just cutting across and he's picking off passes, or he's throwing into double or triple coverage. We saw it against Green Bay. We saw him throw Darnell Mooney into triple coverage. And because they were playing zone, he didn't expect the guy to drop back that far back. And next thing you know, there's 3 guys converging on Darnell Mooney, and it could have been an interception. Mm-hmm. So, again, at this point, if it quacks like a duck, it looks like a duck, it's a duck. And again, 4 years in, again, he's a great guy. Teammates love him. I was talking to Aldo earlier about, the effort, with that handoff to David Montgomery. You see Montgomery flying down the field. Who's running on the opposite side next to him? It's Trubisky. He's running 80-some yards down the field to be the first guy in the end zone to congratulate, Montgomery. I wish the guy was good. I wish the guy would be successful in this system or in the NFL. Again, is he going to be one of those guys like a Tannehill, goes to another system, and all of a sudden the thing clicks, and now he's got a coaching staff that's going to make things easier for him and all that stuff? Possibly, because he's kid's talented. He's got the athletic ability. I've always said the issues with Mitch Trubisky are not from the neck down, they're from the neck up. So that's where, at this point, if he's not getting it, it's hard to predict or project that he's going to get it eventually.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on Trubisky before we start talking about the offensive line?
Well, I think, we talked briefly about Danny text back and forth about it, or maybe it was on Twitter. I can't remember exactly where it was, but you talked about how it's just been progressively going south as far as like how they're coaching the kid. They figured it out in 2018. They figured out a way to do it in 2018 and then became stubborn as hell about it 2019 and the better part of this year. And really, this year is stubborn about a lot of things, but part of the reason why they call you coach is you figure it out. And they've figured out something the past couple of weeks. So hopefully they just continue to put him in positions to win football games, to execute on the field. And really a lot of that is using your personnel in the right ways as well. They put in all the right personnel packages on Sunday to win that game. Mm-hmm. And they look good doing it.
The one thing about 2018, and you're not the only one. A lot of people will say back, "Oh, this is Mitch in 2018." Once the defensive coordinators got a hold of that tape and they realized how they were playing him, they started to make him stay in a pocket and contain him. Remember, the last half of that season, he wasn't that good, right? It was a 5-6 games into the season. Even at that first 3.5 quarters of that playoff game against Philly, he wasn't very good. And then that tape just continued on him the next season, and then just continued to get worse and worse and worse. So, he's a guy that, for me, in the pocket, if you can't process in the pocket as a quarterback, and it's great that you can get on move the pocket and be active and be able to make throws on the run. But if you cannot play in the pocket, you're a very limited quarterback, which means you're a very limited offense.
I agree.
All right.
I agree. Again, they call you coach for a reason. So, we got to figure it out. They've done a good job the past couple of weeks of figuring it out. We'll see what they do this Sunday to figure it out.
Well, one of the things that they figured out is the offensive line. And Bill Lazor, I'm going to play a cut. I wasn't planning on playing it, so I kind of jerry-rigged something here. Let me see if I can play it. This is Bill Lazor talking about a couple of the reasons why we're seeing better offensive line play. And again, Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears.
The number one, the consistency of the same group being able to work, that really helps. Number two, I think it's a group that is a bunch of smart guys who are really good communicators, who understand football. And there's so many complexities that can go on with different defensive blitz schemes and adjustments. And it's hard to play on the offensive line in the NFL if you aren't bright if you aren't a quick thinker and a good communicator. And some of the communication is really subtle and really fast. And again, it just takes them working together to get those things down.
I think he makes a great point here. The fact that they have finally decided, hey, we're going to go with these 5 guys. Let's stop messing around and moving one guy from this position to that position. Let's tell them, this is your position. You're going to be playing this position and not any other. That's one big point. Secondly, is these guys are bright. Sam Mustipher at center, the Notre Dame kid, I mean, he came out of college without the athletic skills that would have wowed you and would have said, wow, this guy's going to be a great center in the NFL. But what he did come out of college was smarts and a will to win and a will to exceed and a will to play well. And he is the best communicator on that offensive line, better than Cody Whitehair, and definitely better at James Daniels. That's why James Daniels has kind of flunked out at that center position, because it was more of his communication skills and him not. He's almost has that kind of Trubisky problem that Danny said, from the neck up. Daniels could be a little bit guilty of that. He's got all the athletic and physical skills, but he certainly wasn't capable of making the calls at the center position. So Sam Mustipher is, and he's doing a really good job. The interior of the line, I've just seen improved play with Alex Bars and at the left guard position, Cody Whitehair, those 3 guys. Your thoughts on what Laser said and my thoughts on the offensive line. Danny?
Well, this game Sunday left me pissed off. And I made a list of things why I was pissed off. Really? One of the things I was talking about is why it took so long for them to figure out how to use Trubisky and put him in a position where he can be successful and make successful plays. Same thing. Why did it take them this long? 10 games into the season, with Rashard Coward playing right guard or right tackle, and Jason Spriggs, a second-round bust for the Packers, playing right tackle. Why did it take them this long to get these guys who are not rookies? These guys were on the roster last season. To figure it out. That's what I want to know. And you're right, Aldo. Once they put these 3 guys in the middle, Whitehair at left guard, Mustipher at center, and then Alex Bars at right guard, the offense took off. And what took off most was the running game. If you look at David Montgomery's numbers, 11 rushes, 113 yards, averaging 10.3 yards a carry in that Packers game with a touchdown. The next game, 12 carries, 72 yards, 4.2 yards in average, and this past week, 11 carries, 103 yards. Now, why is he getting 11 and 12 carries? Total different story. We'll get into that later on probably, but no doubt about it, this offensive line has made a difference. And this is what I told you, with a kid like Trubisky at quarterback, a guy is limited, you got to have to be able to help him with an offensive line, help him with a running game. And these last 3 weeks, the Bears, they've only won 1 game, unfortunately, but the last 3 weeks, they have helped him with this running game. Why it took him this long? Why is it hard for this coaching staff to find the strength of a player and put them in position where they succeed instead of trying to make him into a player that fits their scheme or their system or their ideal position in their system? This is what the Patriots do. They find what a guy does. That's why they take a lot of first and second round busts and they go to the Patriots and they become Pro Bowlers. They become guys that other teams want because they take what they do best and they use them in that situation. The same thing with the Bears. You got to find what your guys do best and put them in a situation where they exceed. Right now, I think this and I got to give a mea culpa to Sam Mustipher because I was the one saying, why is this kid on the roster? Because last year, a preseason game, this kid was getting blown off the ball. He had no play strength to be able to hold his point of attack. He's a guy that was being ragdolled around by defensive linemen. I was like, why is this guy on the roster? But he has proven me wrong. And I love it when guys prove me wrong because that means they're trying hard. And like you said, Aldo, he's a guy that came in, worked his ass off. Not only is he smart, he was well coached coming out of Notre Dame. He is very sound technique-wise, so he knows how to get leverage and move guys, wash guys down the line of scrimmage, and be able to create some of those lanes and creases for these running backs to get through. Even Cordell Patterson was running effectively behind this offensive line in the last couple of weeks. So, yes, I'm excited about the interior of this offensive line, but I'm pissed off. Why does it take 10 freaking weeks to put this group together, and why does it take 13 weeks to finally figure out how to use Mitch Trubisky? I got a list of more things I'm pissed off about, but I'll keep going, Neil.
I can feel your fire, brother. It's hot over here. Yeah, it's hot.
This is why I told you last week, I have that towel. I'm throwing it in. I'm ready to throw it in on Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. But now I'm holding it. I'm pulling it back on Ryan Pace because you know what? All the guys that he's been being criticized about are performing when they're being put in a position to succeed. So is it Ryan Pace the problem, finding the talent the problem, or is it the coaching staff not putting these players in position to succeed?
Is it the head coach? Because these coordinators and position coaches come with a lot of acclaim. It's not like these guys have been failures elsewhere. These guys are good coaches, and the only one that is not proven at his position is Matt Nagy, the head coach. Neil, your thoughts?
The interesting thing about Danny's rant there, I'm equally as frustrated. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not trying to sugarcoat. I'm not trying to downgrade it or whatever the case may be. I think the thing that's interesting, though, that we need to keep in mind is, number one, the offensive line has been a chronic issue since I've been alive. All right. We have never had a stellar offensive line that I can remember. Number two, we've had basically the equivalent of like 5 hours to figure out this offensive line this year with everything that COVID has done to OTAs, to the spring, to the summer, going into the fall. There was really no fall camp. Let's just be honest about that, right? You throw injuries into the fire, and all of a sudden you have this cornucopia of crap to where we're really sort of just trying to hold on to our ass throughout the entire season, just trying to figure it out on the fly, right? I think that really has to be considered as a monumental factor and why this has taken so long to figure out. You hope that with everything else being equal, with the appropriate amount of time in fall camp or over the summer or in OTAs and everything else, that you would have had the ability to come bring a plan together in case the ish hit the fan like it has this year. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just, posing a reason as to why it has happened the way that it has. And again, I'm equally as frustrated as you. But on the plus side of things, they finally did seem to figure something out. That the interior offensive line is making moves and controlling their space and creating lanes and everything else. Although you touched on the intelligence factor of what you need at center, and that's really, the interesting thing about that position is, and we're going to talk about this in a month, down the road when we bring up these interior offensive linemen. But that center position is basically the second quarterback on the field. You build your team, vertically from the center and then go out toward the sidelines, right? So quarterback, center, middle linebacker, the guy that runs the defense, and then the safety that has a clue what's going on from center field. And all those guys need to be top level intelligent to be able to be really good players at those positions. And so you get a kid like Mustapher in there that can think and chew gum at the same time and be communicative and articulate himself and understand what's going on and, know the playbook like the back of his hand. And yeah, you're going to get high level production from the center position, and just adding the fact that he does have some athleticism about him. Good for him. But, that's the main, key right there, is that you get the right guy in that position. All of a sudden the offense is that much more fluid. Things start to click when you get the right guys in the right spots. It's like puzzle pieces, guys. You get the right guys where they're supposed to be. Things start to fall into place. That offensive line has looked the best it's been all year. I'm not a big fan of Fady. Anywhere across the board on this line, I think that he's a plotter. And he showed on Sunday that he can hang with a guy that's a hell of a lot more athletic than he is, and he's a big time liability. But everything else seems to be kind of falling into place. Even Leno had a decent game last week, which is commendable. But
I said the same thing, and I was attacked. The left tackle position. I think what a lot of Chicago Bears fans don't realize is that there aren't very many good ones. And if the Chicago Bears fans are ready to hang Charles Leno, ready to assassinate him, that's just dumb, in my opinion. This guy is probably in the top 15, somewhere between 15 and worst 20 as left tackles. He's not great, but man, oh man, look at what Laramie Tunsil, a first-round draft pick, did against the Bears. He gave up that sack to Bilal Nichols. I mean, he basically maybe Danny is right. Maybe the Texans did quit on him, but Laramie Tunsil, he had last year, everybody was making fun of Charles Leno for the amount of penalties that he had. Guess who matched him? Laramie Tunsil. It's a big first round investment that they made a huge trade for. The Texans traded multiple picks in a huge 9-player trade to acquire Tunsil. We got Charles Leno for a 7th round draft pick, and you can scheme around his deficiencies. You don't have to drop back 7 steps and then look. You get rid of the ball quickly, and you can minimize the liability that you have at the tackle spots. Get rid of the ball quickly. That's why I am a big proponent of having that strong center and those 2 guards, because quarterbacks want to step up in the pocket, because quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball quickly, because you're seeing more and more interior defensive linemen who are athletic and are good pass rushers. So I don't place that big of an emphasis on the offensive tackles like in the years of Lawrence Taylor, where you had to have athletic, gifted, top talent at the tackle positions. But because the play of football has changed, you don't need that anymore. And Charles Leno is more than serviceable at the left tackle position. Yes, does he get beat every once in a while by a 185-pound defensive back? Yes, it happens, but it happens to some of the top tackles in the league. That's my rant.
The only thing about Leno is, last week was just he got called for a holding penalty. I think that was just one, or maybe 1 or 2, maybe that's about it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of being serviceable, he's a serviceable left tackle. For me, coming into this or this offseason, my thing was right guard and right tackle. Heck, if Alex Bars is playing well, I think he could be your future right guard. That's more to discuss later on down the road there. But back to your initial point, Neil, in terms of, yes, this offseason was not a typical offseason. There was no OTAs. Didn't have much time to they have no training camp, no preseason games, whatever. However, these guys were on the team last year. There was a training camp last year. These guys were on the practice squad. I believe Mustafa was in the practice squad, and eventually later in the year was pulled up to the squad. So they should know this. These coaching staff should know these guys, right? They should know where Mustafa's a center only. He's not a guard or anything like that. The fact that we have to sit there and watch Rashard Coward, God bless his heart. I mean, the guy's a former defensive lineman, was flipped over to offensive line, showed some promise as a developmental right tackle, but he sucks at guard. And then to move him over to left guard and then right tackle. Coward needs to be on the bench. He might not even need to be on the roster anymore. I mean, that's the fact that now you got 3 guys that have actually been coached up to play offensive line. You got guys that as Whitehair at guard, and then Mustafa and then Alex Bars. These guys know what to do in those interior positions. The other thing about going back to Aldo's, your point about last year with James Daniels, I believe when they made the switch early on in the season, Whitehair, even though he was playing guard, he was calling the plays. He was calling out the protection schemes. It wasn't James Daniels. I think the reason they went back to Whitehair at center is because Mitch felt more comfortable with Whitehair as a center as opposed to Daniels. But in terms of the actual setting up the protection, calling out blitzes and all that stuff, it was still Cody Whitehair at left guard doing that instead of the Daniels at center.
Yeah, I saw a report that some of the players on the offensive line were complaining that they couldn't even hear James Daniels when he was making some of the calls at center. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but there appeared to be a time where he was making the calls and they took it away from him. So, the good thing about James Daniels, and I think you both will agree with me, is that before he got injured in this season, he was playing good at that left guard position.
He was the best offensive lineman at the time when he got hurt, in my opinion, and playing left guard.
Right. So what happens next season, guys? Do you Daniels will return. Do you take a look at him at the right guard position or what?
What I do personally is Whitehair's played all 5 positions in college. So I think Whitehair could easily switch out to right guard if need be. Okay. If you want to keep Mustafa at center, assuming you're okay with Mustafa at center, unless you want to return Whitehair back at center, get yourself a right guard and a right tackle. But if you keep Mustafa at center, you bring in Daniels at left guard, you move Whitehair to right guard, and then you go get yourself a right tackle, whether it's in the draft or free agency. I prefer to go get one in the draft. They're already up against it in terms of the salary cap, and I think think there's a lot of depth there at the offensive tackle position. We can bring in a guy in the second round possibly and be a guy that can develop and possibly even start. If not, you still have a guy like maybe a veteran, not a Jermaine Ofetti, but someone in that time, bringing it for a 1-year contract, and just have him start in terms of a right tackle for next year if you want to get a guy a year to break in or something like that. But that's what I would do. I would keep these three, some combination of adding James Daniels to that mix. Hey, can Alex Bars play right tackle? He played left tackle at Notre Dame. So that's the thing. He's doesn't have the size and the height really. He's about 6'3" or 6'3.5". So it may not be the ideal fit at right tackle, but he's a guy that played left tackle in college. He played some right tackle in college as well. So, but I think he's found this nice spot there at right guard. And I think I would just like to leave him there for now.
Neil, what does this offensive line look like to you in 2021?
I think that the right tackle position needs to be addressed with our second pick in the draft. I think it's quarterback 1, right tackle 2. And I think that we'll have, some good, options to choose from with that second pick in that draft amongst those tackles that we have available. I like Daniels at left guard. I like, how, Musfer's been playing so far at center. I think it's still, up to be determined as far as, who we put at that center position. Cody Whitehair having the position versatility that he has is the ultimate wild card as far as the offensive line goes. And as much as injuries have riddled our offensive line over the past couple of years, having that kind of guy with that kind of ability is, crucial. So I think that, we got to look at free agency too to see what pops up there. But ultimately, the biggest draft need right now is right tackle. And let's just go from there, see how the pieces fall. And actually having a normal offseason this year is going to, obviously help a lot too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only way I can see Charles Leno not being on the team next season is if he's a victim of the salary cap with 33 players signed for next season. The Bears' salary for next season is at about $188 million, and it looks like the cap could be at around that level. Mm-hmm. So there's going to have to be some clever maneuvering with maybe contract extensions, with signings, with the dropping of players. Everyone has sort of already scratched Bobby Massey off the list for the 2021 Chicago Bears to save those cap dollars. You might then be looking at Charles Leno too. I think that they'll probably keep him just because it is difficult to replace a left tackle, particularly somebody who knows the system so well. Do you guys think at all that Leno is in danger of losing his job in 2021?
I don't. I think what they're going to do is, like you said, they're going to go at right tackle, bring in a young guy, preferably a guy that can probably play both left and right. Maybe a college left tackle is going to move to right, and until they can figure out the situation with Leno's contract and eventually move the kid back over to the left side. But I think Leno, like you said, is passable in terms of a starting left tackle. Is he great? No, he's not great, but he's doable. But if you secure, we just saw the interior of that line get secured with these three guys and how well they're playing. If you get a right tackle that's above average, right, and you're going to have 4 solid position, and then a guy like Leno will just blend right in. You guys won't even notice him. So I think that's the way to go if I'm the Bears, especially with their cap situation being where they're at. Another thing we got to keep in mind, this is what I was talking about, a guy like a player like Jermaine Ofetti, not Jermaine Ofetti himself. A lot of teams are going to be up against the cap as well. A lot of good players are going to be released because of this cap situation. So you might be able to get, you're going to have a situation where you're going to have a market that's flooded with good players that can still play in the NFL. So you bring in a veteran, maybe a 1-year deal, bring him in, at a right tackle position. In the meantime, if you don't are able to, address that position necessarily right away in the draft, but definitely I'm with Neil in terms of if you can get yourself a right tackle or a tackle position prospect in that second round after you got your quarterback in the first round, that's the way I would go.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to secure the ends, and again, so many people want to push Leno out the door. We could be doing a hell of a lot worse, guys. Let's go ahead and be honest about this. There's a reason why the left tackle position is so highly paid, because there's very few of them, and it's very far between, right? Leno, although you said it yourself, he's a probably a top 15 guy. I thought 100% the same thing. When you said that, I was like, hey, preach it to the choir, bud. He's at least serviceable, and that's really what we need right now. We need something at least serviceable, because I don't know. We haven't been great at that position historically. So he's at least one of the better ones we've had since I've been alive, for sure. Can we do better? 100%. But again, like those cats are rare, man.
Yep.
Big athletic dudes, dancing bears. Those guys are rare. Find one, hold on to them for a long freaking time. But while you have one that can at least get the job done out there and not get beat every play, and you get, that's definitely valuable. The right tackle position. Again, we gotta service that one. We gotta get those two sides. We gotta get those the two ends of the offensive line situated.
And that's why I was going to say, like, remember last year, Cornelius Lucas was our backup for the Bears. He was Leno's backup. He's starting left tackle for the Washington football team right now. So, I mean, that's how bad the position is right now. But that's why a kid like Trey Smith, I brought him up earlier with our conversation with Matt Lowe. He's a guy at Tennessee, a guy who's played left tackle and he's played left guard. He's played well both positions, 6'5", 330 plus pounds. He's a kid, if you get his guy in the second round, he might go in the first round, tail in the first round. We'll see how that goes. But if you get a guy like that, the second round, a guy can come in who's got position versatility. You can bring him in, put him in at a guard position or even a right tackle position, and eventually move him over to the left tackle once Leno's contract's up. Those are the kind of guys I'm looking for. Those are the kind of guys who gives you depth on the offensive line and also gives you a plan for the future.
By the way, Laramie Tunsil back in April signed a 3-year, $66 million contract with the Texans, and so when yeah, I mean, you got to look at it. I'm the general manager, right? You got to look at it from a value standpoint. I sit down and I talk to my scouts and I talk to my coaches and say, can we scheme around Leno's deficiencies? Because I don't want to pay $66 million for a left tackle. Not when, the NFL has changed its style of play. To me, it just it doesn't necessitate. Here's something. Olin Kreutz on the NBC Sports Chicago after game show, he said, "Look at the Texans. They got their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. They got their left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. Right now, who won that game? Who played better? It was Mitchell Trubisky and Charles Leno. So, I'm not saying that I would want to go into the future with Trubisky over Watson or Tunsil over Leno, but in terms of value, in terms of, making do with some of the resources that you have and disguising them with play calling and scheming and so forth, we could do a lot worse than Charles Leno. I'm telling you, we could definitely.
I agree.
There's a lot to be said for character as well. And the reason why I would spend, 2 hours at a time with NFL scouts when I was the pro liaison in Mississippi State is because the character background, all those things are monumental in positions like center and quarterback. And they are equally as monumental in position like left tackle. And when you look at Laramie Tunsil with a gas mask on draft night, I'm out, dude. I'm out. I as a GM, I'm not making a trade for this guy. He embarrassed his family and his alma mater, and the team that drafted him 5 seconds after they called his name. Who's trading for this guy and paying him all the money they're paying him?
Well, it gets worse, guys.
Lapse of judgment.
It gets even worse, guys. Aldo, you mentioned the amount of money that the Texans signed him to. Bill O'Brien, the former head coach of the Texans, traded their first and their second round pick, which is their first is going to probably be a top 5 pick this year, for Jeremy Tunsil. So that's why the Dolphins are going to have a top 5 pick because of that.
Right, and they got Kenny Stills along with Tunsil, and Kenny Stills is no longer on the team. So, Bill O'Brien, wherever you are right now, you really
Miami thanks you.
Yeah, really. Guys, I want to get your thoughts on Cole Kmet. We saw him over the last 2 weeks. He has gotten 7 targets in each of those last 2 games, 14 total targets over the last 2 weeks. Prior to that, he had 14 for the entire season. So I think this kind of falls under Danny's theme of things to be pissed off about.
It's on my list. Cole Kmet is on my list. Why does Cole Kmet have to wait this long to get a second round pick? The guy you guys said is going to be your wide tight end. Why is he not playing ahead of Demetrius Harris? The kid is proving to be an athletic guy, a big body target for your quarterback, whether it's Foles or Trubisky, a guy who after the catch is tough to bring down. athletic as heck. Like I said, runs a 4. I think it was a 4.7 something 40. Why is this guy not getting targets? Why is he doesn't have plays designed for him? Again, this is like one of my list things. That this would piss me off. Why does it take this long to put this kid in a position where he can succeed? And a lot of these plays that they're running with Mitch, rolling in the pocket, it was Cole Kmet slipping out of the off the line of scrimmage into the flats and getting that ball with no one around him, and then getting 10, 15 yards a catch. So definitely a guy that I wanted to see prominently have a prominent role in the offense. It just took 13 weeks, unfortunately, for him to do that.
How many times the guys say it, man? Players, formations, plays. We have not been valuing that very simple concept the entire year, and finally, the past couple of weeks, we started to not be as stubborn. Getting guys in positions where they should be. He had strong game, strong first quarter, strong dude, man. Carrying tacklers, catching the ball. I love what I'm seeing out of him the past couple of weeks and the way that they're using him. And again, Danny, on your rants, finally is sort of like the theme of your rants today. It's finally, it's maddening. It really is. But hey, better late than never, though. Yeah. A lot of times it's better late than never. We still have an opportunity to make the playoffs and stuff, but we're seeing some good things. I love the kid. Let's get him more touches.
Right. Well, and part of my frustration is we hear the head coach throughout camp talking about, during the Zoom meetings, he's catching things. He knows the playbook as well as anyone. Then when they actually get out in the field, he's praising Cole Kmet and so forth. Was he lying? And if he wasn't lying, then why wasn't he being utilized in a way that shows that he's been playing well, that he knows the playbook well? So part of my frustration is just I don't know if I can believe anything that comes out of Matt Nagy's mouth anymore, because he says things and he doesn't follow them up. The whole David Montgomery thing with carries. It's another thing on Danny's list, right?
On my list. I swear he's on my list. Because all I heard was David Montgomery. I'll let you finish. So I'll let you finish.
No, I was just going to say, why are we only seeing 11 carries out of this guy when on the very first carry of the game, he rushes for an 80-yard touchdown? Take it away, Danny.
And on the next series, the first carry, instead of giving it, the guy just ran 80 yards for a touchdown, you give it to Cordero Patterson. Why? You again, a 3rd-round pick, you traded up, you gave up assets to get this kid. He's had a rough going of it because the offensive line sucked in front of him. He'd get the ball, and the next thing you know, defensive lineman's in his face. Now he's got guys blocking, creating some seams, some lanes for him. You see his ability to be able to jump cut in and out of holes. You see his ability, his contact balance, his contact power to be able to stiff arm, break tackles, and get 5, 10 yard chunks at a time. You see his pass catching ability, his hands out of the backfield. He might have some of the best hands on the team. This is a talented kid. And again, people are knocking Montgomery the pick and Pace for making the pick, but we see what Pace saw on him, what Neil, maybe you saw on him as well. This guy was a perfect fit for the system, and now we're just seeing him play. But the guy ran 80 yards on one carry, and the next thing you know, the next handoff is Cordero Patterson. Why getting cute? And then he had 11 carries for the whole game. So yeah, he ran the first carry for 80 yards, and he had 10 the rest of the game. That's it. It pisses me off. Like, it's week in and week out. I don't know why this is just a constant theme. Is it Matt Nagy, the play caller, getting in the way of Matt Nagy, the head coach? That's why I kind of maybe explain what you're talking about, Aldo, in terms of, hey, during the week, he's had a great week of practice, Cole Kmet, he's doing this, doing that. We're got to get him involved. But then when Sunday comes around, when Matt Nagy, the play caller, is in his little play sheet, he loses himself. He loses the head coach and just wants to design these plays and get 80 yards, 70-yard touchdowns all the time. That's why I think I said it a couple of shows ago. Matt Nagy, the play caller, eventually is going to get Matt Nagy, the head coach, fired.
Yeah. Neil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm hot. You guys hot?
100%. I'm about to ask Aubrey to go ahead and put the air on it. It's way too warm in here right now. It's hot on my end, guys. I'm burning up. I need more water.
My son came down on Sunday. He heard me yelling. He's like, "Dad, the Bears are winning. Why are you yelling?" because I'm pissed.
Hey, she just put the air on, guys.
I love it. Well, tell her to come out and say hi before we end the show. I want to, and before we end it, I want to get your thoughts overall on the defense. I think we have to start with. There you go. You got to start with Bilal Nichols, right? I mean, the guy has been playing sensational football. Last week against Detroit, he gets an interception and a sack. And then this week he gets a sack. He's now had 4 sacks since week 6. To me, he's playing at a Pro Bowl level. A lot of people are kind of overlooking his play. Am I over-analyzing, over-praising Bilal Nichols? Your thoughts on that, Neil?
I think I was one of those guys. I was ready to write this guy off. I mean, I think we said last show that he wasn't a top level player. I still don't think he's necessarily a top level player. Like, he's having a really good year. He's had a really good past couple weeks. He's again. I'm not too fired up about what he has been and can be, but he's made a bunch of good plays. He's a nice player. I'm happy that we have a interior defensive lineman that can succeed every now and again and get in the backfield and sack somebody. I still think we need better players at that position. That's just me.
For me, I think Nichols was being played out of position. I think with Eddie Goldman out, I think he was played at the nose tackle position where he's not really stout in terms of as a run defender, taking on blockers. And his guy that was just really being pushed out of the play, really. Now with Akeem Hicks back, with Jenkins back, you see more coverage or more attention being paid to Hicks and Mack, obviously. And I think that's given Nichols the ability to kick out with Roy Robertson Harrison out for the season, to play that 5 technique and be that kind of like a Mario Edwards, a guy that rushes up the field and kind of gets in the backfield. And that's where we see his strengths. We see his ability in terms of, a guy for that size. He's got some good upfield quickness. And I think that's where he excels there. Being a dominant run stopper, a guy that can 2-gap and take on blockers, it's not below Nichols' game. So I think that's where he was kind of a little bit, maybe play out of position. I think that could kind of explain some of the inconsistencies overall. But definitely a kid that, his rookie year out of Delaware, we were all excited about his potential. I think kind of plateaued a little bit, but hopefully this little, late season kick can kind of just propel him into next season and then to continue to develop at a rate that is very, very exciting if you're a Bears fan to see. But in terms of him, I think he's going to be a guy that's eventually going to end up being that starter. We don't know what's going on. What happened with Mario Edwards, the whole thing off the field. We'll see what happens there. And obviously, Robertson Harrison is a free agent. So we talked about the salary cap issues. Can you continue to pour more money into that defense when you have issues on offense? So he's probably gone. So I think Nichols is now finally claiming his spot on the defensive line, and he's probably going to be a starter moving forward here.
Yeah, it's important for him to develop, because you're right. I don't see how they can bring back Roy Robertson Harris under the present cap situation. And adding to that cap problem is the signing of Robert Quinn, who is just not living up to the $30 million contract that we're stuck with, because there's really not much you can do in 2021 with that Quinn contract other than perhaps get him to rework the contract. You're not going to be able to forfeit on the guaranteed dollars, but you can perhaps stretch it out over a few years if he's willing to do that to help out the team. Any thoughts on any other aspect of this defense before we close this episode of Draft on Tap?
I have one.
Please.
Buster Screen was on the field, and we didn't miss him at all. All right. That should be the end of Buster Screen. Duke Shelley played well. And I think I saw Kendall Vilder come in there when Jalen Johnson got left the game as when he hurt his shoulder. Now, again, the game was out of hand. Wasn't really challenged a lot. But you know what? I want to see more of Duke Shelley. I want to see more of Kendall Vilder. I want to see more of DHC, DeAndre Houston Carson. The guy, whenever he has a given opportunity, he's making plays. Yeah. These are the guys I want to see. I don't want to see Buster Screen on the field anymore. I'm done with him.
Yeah, Duke Shelley's our nickel, guys. I tweeted that out immediately after the game. Duke Shelley's our nickel. I don't know what the hell we're doing anymore.
Yeah.
If Screen ends up back in that field, I'm going to be angrier than Danny just was a little bit ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the extent of Buster's injury
More
is.
angry.
I'm sorry, what was that? More angry, did you say?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Actually, it was a concussion, I believe.
Okay, well, we wish Buster well. Concussions are nothing to laugh about, so we wish him well. But Duke Shelley, great opportunity that he was presented with on Sunday against the Texans. He took advantage of it. Let's hope that he can continue that against the Minnesota Vikings. Neil, do you want to bring in anybody before we say goodbye?
I think she's actually in the middle of thesis related things right now, so I don't want to necessarily take her off topic.
Well, we'll see her.
Important stuff going on right now.
We'll see her sometime in January, I hope. And please tell her that welcome again to Chicago, and
absolutely,
and send her our appreciation for giving you up so much time that you've been spending on Draft on Tap. You guys have been doing a great job with your analysis and providing lists, and we've got a lot more work coming up over the next few weeks, don't we, guys?
Hey, Aldo, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, man, this is the one time of the week that she really enjoys. So she gets the entire other room to herself, and she can just do whatever she wants for about 2.5 hours a day without me being around. She gets to the point where she gets sick of me, I think, sometimes. So it's, she needs some me time.
You can't do that.
Neil, you're talking to two old married guys here. me being really old married guy. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Danny, come on,
Can I talk about one more player that I want to give props to that kind of goes on the radar? Is the special teams always gets overlooked, and I think Josh Woods had a strong game coverage-wise on special teams. He's a guy that I think is really could develop in terms of a special teams player. So I think just want to give him a shout out in terms of he had a really strong game on special teams on Sunday.
Yeah, I laugh because there was this incident on ESPN 1000 where some of our good friends, Carmen DeFalco and a couple of other guys who worked there, didn't know who Josh Woods was. And so it was like, really? You don't know who Josh Woods is? The guy's been with the Bears for the last 3 years. He's been he's been a standout on special teams. And this was something that they mentioned after the Detroit game. And then he had this standout game against the Texans. So I think that they know who Josh Woods is now, and anyone who has been following the Bears Barroom for a couple of years now should know who Josh Woods is. But he is a good player. And I'll also single out Joel Iyebunye. I think he's been playing pretty well on special teams, and Demetrius Harris too has made a few plays on special teams where I can see at least he's providing some value in that area of the team.
Yeah, that's one area the team has really shored itself up. I think Tabor's done a great job in terms of this year shoring up the special teams unit. I think they've been surprisingly really, really well. Even though I think O'Donnell might be having his best season as a pro. Yep. Obviously, Cairo Santos has come in and has really just taken over that place kicking job. Now it's like we're going back to a little bit comfort and field goals 40 and beyond. We're kind of little. Oh, it's okay. We got a kicker now. We don't have to worry about this anymore. So it feels good to have a kicker be able to make kicks beyond 40 yards. So definitely special teams and defense for the most part has been okay this season. But hopefully when a team last week was just all aspects, the offense, the defense, special teams all play well, and it's been so rare the last couple of seasons. I would say that we've seen all three aspects of the game, click and play well on a Sunday. And I think that when you see that, you're like, all right, you see the results here. You see some of that talent on this team when all three aspects play, and play well. They're a very good team. And I think that game against Detroit is really going to come back to haunt them in terms of them potentially making the playoffs.
I agree. Neil, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
One of the things that I think we didn't touch on was how we involved linebackers in blitz schemes on Sunday for arguably the first time all year. And that was something I ranted about, a couple weeks, the last time we had a show, how the linebackers aren't in the backfield at all. Let's mix it up a little bit, man. That was a pleasant surprise. Roquan Smith, I think, had a couple of really strong, grown man plays. The goal line stand. It was good to see. Refreshing, to Danny's point, refreshing.
Yeah, Roquan was a beast. I mean, he just had a great year this year. And one thing, when I saw the game live, I thought, oh, okay, finally, Pagano, send Roquan on a blitz. He's very good at blitzing, but it wasn't even actually a blitz. If you go back and watch the tape, it was more of a delayed. I think he read and he reacted to the quarterback holding on to the ball, and then he just ended up going in and getting the sack. So that's the kind of instincts he's got, the type of athletic ability, the type of short area burst and quickness that we saw coming out of Georgia, which I loved about this kid. So I think he's all putting it together. Whatever happened last year, some stuff in his personal life kind of threw his game off a little bit, if you will. But I think this is the Roquan we saw as a rookie, and hopefully, knock on wood, everything, health is good, and this is the guy that's going to continue to get better and better. And we're looking at a guy that's going to continue that tradition of middle linebackers and Chicago Bears being all pros.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Important to note that after they came off the bye, they gave the Bears defense over 2 games, gave up 10 touchdowns. They gave up 5 to the Packers and 5 to the Lions, and that was unacceptable. Roquan was asked if that proved to be a kind of a motivator for their performance against the Houston Texans, and he said absolutely it did. They were ashamed of themselves, and now they allowed only 1 touchdown against the Texans, and that's the 5th game this season that they've allowed just 1 touchdown. That's the defense that we need to see Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings, and then the following week against the Jaguars, and then the following week against the Green Bay Packers, so that I can, even if we don't make the playoffs, so I can feel a lot better about this team, particularly from the defensive front. And as for Mitchell Trubisky, I know Danny has the quote of the show saying, if it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. Well, I would like to see this duck start to fly on Sunday and have 2 really good back-to-back games. And let's remember that Mitch Trubisky has started 6 games this season. And in 3 of those 6 games, he's had 3 touchdown passes. So that's nothing to sneeze at, guys. I mean, perhaps there's something to build on here, given that maybe they've finally unlocked the keys to how to use this guy. And I get what you're saying. Why did it take so long on the coaching staff? But that's more on the coaching staff than it is on Mitch. Yes, he has a narrow area of capabilities, and if they can, tap into that, and he can succeed and make some progression, some incremental improvements in his processing, maybe we've got something that at least can give us 3 more victories before the end of the season.
But those 3 games with those 3 touchdown passes were against who? Detroit twice and Houston.
Yeah.
Look at the quality of the defensive opponents.
It's a good point, and it's my argument too about Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack gets sacks against really bad opponents, but against good offensive linemen, he tends to disappear. So they've been playing that kind of football for some time now, and it's unfortunate.
Which brings up a conversation we can have probably future in the offseason. But if you're up against it, right, and you say you make these sweeping changes that are reportedly whatever, do you trade Khalil Mack, recoup some of the draft capital, and get your salary cap back in? Again, depends on which direction you're going as a franchise. You still think you have a window to win here, to compete. Again, this is a conversation for the future, but just something to think about is if you're saying that, I personally, I think the guy is dealing with some injuries that, it's not being disclosed, and I think that's slowing him down. But he's out there every Sunday. If you're out there every Sunday, we expect Khalil Mack.
Right. I think
how many different things has he appeared on the injury list for this year so far? What do they say?
Back,
6?
Neck,
6 different. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, dude's banged up, man.
Yeah.
He's gotta get healthy.
He's got to get healthy, and that is, one of the risks when you sign a veteran free agent is how much wear and tear does he have on that body, and so that is a huge concern. And just a quick response to that question that you posed, Danny, is if the Bears bring in a new general manager after the end of this season, then I would say, dude, here are the keys. You want to blow it up the place and start over? You want to get rid of some of these big fat contracts and eat a bunch of cap dollars? You want to fire the head coach and eat the last 2 years of his contract? I have to give you that opportunity to build your team in your fashion. I'm not going to bring you in here and tell you you're stuck with Matt Nagy, you're stuck with Khalil Mack, you're stuck with so-and-so. You can't do that. You did that with Phil Emery, and what did it get you? and Ryan Pace did it with Jay Cutler. And yeah, Jay Cutler was owed a lot of money. You would have had to eat a lot of cash, but that was part of the problem with Ryan Pace's tenure with the Chicago Bears, is that he didn't blow things up. He didn't say, listen, I want to bring in my own head coach and I want to bring in my own quarterback. And that means we're going to have to eat those salaries. So that's
a great point, Aldo, because they did it with Angelo, with Dick Duran. They made him hold Dick Duran for a year and then eventually fired him and got Levy Smith. They did it with, like I said, Phil Emery, and Ryan Pace, quote unquote, brought his own coach, but he was told to go get John Fox. He didn't want John Fox, right? So the guy who wanted to do the change you're talking about, get rid of the quarterback and get rid of certain people in the organization, wasn't hired. That's Ballard. He ended up going to the Colts. So that's why they brought in Ryan Pace. So it's just a history. That's why I think a lot of people are calling for changes all the way up to the top, like with Ted Phillips and all that stuff. Even though I don't think Ted Phillips gets involved in football operations, but if he's in there making some of these decisions or helping the GM or whatnot make some of these decisions, that's where it gets a little bit over. He's stepping over his bounds.
Right. I think Ted Phillips makes the decision on who is going to be the general manager, who's going to head football operations. And so that, you can blame him for that he has not hit a home run or hit a 63-yard field goal on his choice for general manager. And if we're going to get a new general manager this year, then perhaps, or next year, then you should be asking the question, should Ted Phillips be even involved? There's been some rumors that he might retire at the end of the season. And if so, there's been rumors that perhaps Ryan Pace will step up into that team president role, and that then Pace would either elevate a Champ Kelly, the assistant general manager for the team, or look outside. So those are things we'll be watching.
But at that point, are you just moving the chairs on a deck of the Titanic? I mean, are you really doing any changes there?
Well,
if he lets Champ actually make some decisions, though. So I know Champ's he's pretty good up here, man. He's
a head of pro scouting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He's in charge of free agency and all that stuff. Which is one area that Ryan Pace has really struggled in, bringing in free agents from all the NFL teams. So how much of that is Ryan Pace? How much of that is Champ Kelly? That's my question.
Well, I don't know. Kelly.
Great.
I mean, when you say struggle, you mean making the right decisions, like a Robert Quinn? Okay.
Right. Robert Quinn, Glennon,
right.
Some other free agent, guys that they brought in, Fetty. Now, again, not a big contract with Fetty, but still, guys on the roster. I think the only really good free agent acquisition, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, has been Akeem Hicks, Allen Robinson, and Danny Trevathan.
Right. And I'm with Neil. I think Champ Kelly is a very, very bright and promising general manager, but we need to know more about who was really responsible for some of these poor free agent acquisitions. What was Champ's role on that? Did he pound the table for Robert Quinn? Because if he did, then he pounded for the wrong guy. He should have been pounding for Leonard Floyd to stay, for to keep that exclusive free agent contract, to tag him, whatever it was. Oh, the option, the 5th-year option.
Right.
So lots of decisions, lots of stuff to talk about. You guys have done a great job, as always. Great interview with Matt Lowe. You guys, I know, are going to spend the holidays looking at some tape, but hopefully you're going to spend lots of time enjoying your families and having a great time. I really enjoy working on this project with you guys. Final words, guys. You want to do a shout out to anybody before we turn off the lights?
No, I just wish everybody out there happy, safe holiday season. We'll see you guys after the new year. We'll talk to you guys after the new year. See you after the new year as well. And just looking forward. This is now this is the season. The college football regular season is over. This is the championship week, and then I'm going to go into the bowl season. And then next, with Senior Bowl and draft prep and all that stuff. So starting to rev up here, guys. Neil and I are head deep into tape already. So it's going to get more and more interesting, more and more exciting, especially if the Bears make some of these changes that have been rumored. Things are going to we're not going to have a lack of things to talk about. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
100%. I mean, the spectrum of things that could change over the course of the next, 3 or 4 months is, it's astounding. But it's going to move fast.
Our next show could be after the Bears have made big changes because it's January 7th, right? And that season ends. Is it January? Was it 4th or I forgot which the day the season ends?
3rd, I believe.
3rd.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, and Chris Bryant could be traded by the Chicago Cubs by the time we come back, right, Neil?
Who?
I thought I saw
the White Sox were going to win the World Series this year.
I thought he was sticking around. That's what I saw.
Scott Boras said that, but I don't know. Scott Boras saying it and Cubs management saying it are two different things. We'll see.
Either way. No, it's going to be a fast and furious next few months here. I'm really amped up to get down to the Senior Bowl with you guys. Not going to lie. That's going to be a fun time. Hopefully we can get a live show in down there.
Oh, yeah.
Nagy's amped up to have us down there, so that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But, ultimately, we got a month before our next show. I don't know what I'm going to do without you guys over the next month.
Only 2 weeks, man. Come on.
We'll see you on social media.
Ultimately, the important thing is we got some holidays coming up, and I know, COVID has made everything just a complete cluster, over the past, few months, and has made holidays tough and has made the way we spend them even more frustrating. And, I won't be able to see any of my family for the holidays because my mom and dad have not let anybody inside the house since March. Mm-hmm. And, my sister got COVID, and, she and her husband are just kind of, trying to live together with some precaution and all the normal things that would be going on over the course of the next 2 weeks are not going to be going on. It's going to be the weirdest holiday stretch I believe that any of us has ever been through. But I think the important thing is just to connect with those people however you possibly can. If you do it in person, if you do it over Zoom. I know I got a big family Christmas party coming up on Sunday where there's going to be about 80 of us on a Zoom call, and it's going to be just, it's going to be a madhouse because that's how it is in Stopczynski, family Christmas parties typically. But, it's just a matter of, being thankful for the family and friends that you have, I think. And, just rejoicing about that and being thankful and telling people you love them. And, soon we're going to be out of this mess, guys. Hopefully by springtime, we're going to be out of this mess. We'll be able to go back to, the closest semblance of normal we've seen in a year. So, but just, to all the listeners, happy holidays to you guys. Merry Christmas. Enjoy it. And, can't wait to get back on get back on these shows. The other side.
Neil, thanks very much. And I'm going to be filling in for David Schuster tomorrow on the Schuster Gabriel Talk Bear show. David is on vacation, so we'll be back here on our YouTube channel tomorrow at 2:30 Central. Greg Gabriel and myself will be previewing the Bears and Vikings, and then also a podcast later in the day will be released with Buffon 55 talking to Luke Bryan, who covers the Minnesota Vikings. So we've got tons of coverage coming up for this upcoming game, and you can find it here all on Bears Barroom. Goodbye, everybody.